You are one of
So I'm going to be I'm going to be an inmate.
you are one of the inmates running the asylum. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's what usually I'm accused of.
No doubt
Had a
about
good day today. Just discovered my chest freezer quit, and the risk of losing a whole lot of frozen food. So first thing tomorrow morning is go buy another freezer.
I am properly embarrassed to say that I was thinking, why do you have a freezer for your chest? Anyone?
Okay.
Anyone? Bueller? That's literally what I thought about. First minute, first couple of seconds there, I'm like, what's he got a freezer in his chest for?
Hyperbaric chamber?
Well,
What is it?
Not good. Not good. Not what I should be thinking about. Not what I should be thinking of.
Wait, is it an iron lung or
An
an
iron,
aluminum lung? What is it?
an iron,
well, it's
A chest freezer. Yes, I understand.
an iron lung. That's going back. That's
yeah, I guess it
I'm
is.
old. I'm
might
sorry.
that might win the historical reference debate.
MRI machines are in now. I think MRI machines are the current thing now.
That's going to win
If I'm
the.
up to date.
That's going to win the historical reference debate before we even start. Iron lung. That's fantastic.
You guys
Okay.
ever think of all the stores that used to be that aren't anymore? Think of Radio Shack. Think of Tower Records. Think of Walden Books. A lot of stuff's gone.
Corvettes, Caldors, Great Eastern, Two Guys.
Yep. Yep.
Channel Lumber. Remember Channel Lumber before Home Depot?
Two Guys.
Yeah.
Two Guys. Wow, wait.
Oh, well, wasn't Kinko's a big office supply, and I think they're going too, aren't they?
Kinko's? Yeah, Kinko's.
It's FedEx owns them now.
Yeah.
Oh. I was thinking the other day, I have a brand new distribution center for Amazon right here, but 2 miles away from where I live. I got thinking, you know what the heck that is? That's basically a multi-billion-dollar flea market. If you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, multi-million doesn't even.
Well, that's why I said multi-billion.
Yeah, I mean that's. I don't think they've reached the $1 trillion valuation yet. Apple has reached it. Apple.
Well, we're now.
I'm pretty
now
sure. I'm pretty sure. Google's parent company has reached $1 trillion, as has Meta, the Facebook parent company. I believe they've all reached $1 trillion valuation. Now,
well, aggregate debt around the world is well over that, well over trillions, many, many trillions.
Well, whether they can get that, if they put themselves up for sale, is a whole different.
Well, who's going to buy?
Discussion, but you know, at the end of the day, the valuation of something is what someone is willing to pay.
That's right.
So,
and we're moving in the direction of the U.S. dollar is losing faith around the world. It's a faith-based currency, and it only is worth anything as long as somebody thinks it is.
Well, I can make the argument,
but it's not black and white. It's not black and white. It deteriorates over time.
But I can make the argument for that for any currency.
Well, of course.
Quite literally any currency.
Especially
these very fake cryptocurrencies that are completely unregulated and whose
you and I agree.
valuations are essentially set by those who created it because they're the ones that stand to make the most money off the trading of them.
And they're going to press by everybody into buying them, but it's still a Ponzi game, and it always going to boil down to how many people think it's worth how much. The people that designed the Bitcoin had a legitimate beef about the questionability of the U.S. currency or any others, and they thought, hot dog, the problem is it's a government runs it. No, that's not the problem. The problem is it's a faith-based currency. So Bitcoin does not improve the situation over as a as an alternative to the U.S. dollar or any other currency. They're living in a dream world. Anyway, it's going to collapse, and I probably won't be around to see it, but I'm telling you ahead of time. Anyway, what's new otherwise?
I tell you all a lot. That the great one of the great comforts of my life is that there are more days behind than in front, and I'm not going to see the worst of it either.
Yeah, be optimistic, because that's true. Still, people.
Okay, how about this, kids? All the sharing is done. There's one of our guests. Let's see if
just a quick one, Jeff. I looked into the Lula TV you wanted me to. It's an application just like you're using.
I kind of.
So it shares everything. Oh, kitty cat.
Yeah,
I see kitty cat.
We love to see the cats. We like to say we're all at home. It's no biggie. What a handsome devil too. I had 2 cats in my life look like him. Her, not Char. Love it. I've had 2 of them look like that. It brings back good memories and sad memories all at the same time. But I love it. That's part of it, isn't it?
You guys are about ready to go. You want to mute me and I'll just listen.
Yeah, damn it, Franz. Mute. Darn it. Kidding.
Can you mute me?
I will in just a second. Yeah, we're less than 60 seconds from go. We are all over Facebook, I believe. Somebody please check out 101 when you get a chance. Make sure we're actually there. Be great.
Stand by. Yeah, I'll do that.
We are less than 60 seconds away. Maybe 30-ish. He said, maybe somewhere in that area. We are expecting a total of 3 guests. 1 out of 3 so far. But then again, 300 gets you to the Hall of Fame. There's another one. All right, let's, what do you say we kick this party off, huh? In 3, 2, fun.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know enough to do. To you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you. Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight? A loyal man who brings a job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you. It's up to you. It's strictly up to you. And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed? To which we must be true. So it's up to you. It's up to you. It's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? Who'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Good
Good evening. Welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, North American continent, Western Hemisphere, on this planet Earth. The only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 29th of October, 2023. Only 2 more programs for you to suffer through before the end of the 2023 election cycle. A hearty welcome and thank you to everyone who is a part of the program, taking the program in this evening. We appreciate you very much. Even the troll who's following on Facebook, who can't define anything, but that's cool. We like them too. It's never a bad chance to learn facts. God darn those pesky facts and history and science and data and truth. Gosh, how they get in the way sometimes, but that's okay. It's partly why we're here. We're here to talk to each other. So let's do that. Let's get to the business end of the program, wherever you might be, across the Facebook universe and I forgot to count. Let me count. 104, about 110 different places that we've shared the program to this week. We thank you, of course, as always, to everyone who has allowed us to be a little bit a part of your tiny bit of the Facebook universe. We thank you. We couldn't do it without you. We don't make any money here. We survive on the kindness of others. So to every single public group, private group, individual, national page, everybody, we thank you for allowing us to be part of your little corner of the Facebook universe, just the same that we are a little corner of our own Facebook universe. We appreciate it very, very much. Anywhere that you have that we are being shared right now, you can stay right there and take in the program, listen, watch in the background as you prepare dinner, get the kids ready for school tomorrow, work on those Halloween costumes, whatever it might be. Or you can come to our home group Facebook page, that other side of information, and you can go to my own personal timeline, Jeff Kennedy. It's right there on the screen. I will see your comments. We can have a conversation. I will take your comments, questions, and anything that's appropriate to ask. If it's clean, we'll ask it. You don't have to agree. We'll have a conversation here. Questions and comments are welcome, especially when they're fact-based and truth. Isn't that fun? We'll do that too. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. We are proud, as always, to be part of the Hot101.net family. Hot101.net is on the air around the globe 24/7. If you can connect to the internet, no matter how you do it and with whatever type of device you do it with, you can listen to Hot101.net, and you should be. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. Desktops, laptops, phones, tablets, Bluetooth speakers, Bluetooth headphones, Bluetooth buds, Bluetooth it in the car. And you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net, but you don't need our website to listen. You can use the apps, Apple App Store, Google Play Store for Android devices, and for any other type of device, the TuneIn Radio app. Just go up to the search bar and type in Hot101.net. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net. We are also on the TCP Media Group. As always, proud to be part of the TCP Media Group. And of course, our sponsor, the Pay Give app. PayGive app is a financial transaction app. You can make purchases, anything that has to do with finances, with money. Let's put it that way. It is a financial app. Anything that you might do with finances, you can do through there. You make purchases, don't you? We all do. The 99% of us economically spend nearly 100% of our income just to survive. So you have to buy things. And when you do, you have to pay for them. You can use the PayGive app to pay for them. And when you do, you can designate a portion of your financial transaction to go to the charity or cause that you believe in of your choice. It could be an animal charity, could be children's hospitals, could be cancer charities, veterans charities, seniors charities, anything like that. If you know of a big time charity, it's listed with PayGive. And if you know of a big time place to shop, it's listed with PayGive. There are nearly 50,000 vendors listed with PayGive. So PayGive app, you have to buy things. When you do, you pay for them. If you have to pay for things, why not give while you do it? The PayGive app, www.paygive.org. It is the 29th of October, only 2 more programs until the end of the election cycle. As you know, we spend all of our time, as much as humanly possible, leading up to the end of any election cycle, trying to bring attention to the candidates and the races of note and of importance. In odd years, that would be a year ending in an odd number because there are no off years. We spend time on county and local elections. We were kind enough to be joined by statewide candidate, Supreme Court Democratic nominee for the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court, Dan McCaffrey, last week. That's a rare one for us, sadly. I wish more statewide candidates felt welcome coming here. But that said, we have dedicated a lot of time to local candidates. We're doing the same thing again this week. We have 3 school board candidates with us right now because if you've been with the program at all in the last 6 months, you know that twice in those last 6 months, we have had the founder and head of the national group Stop Moms for Liberty on our program. We have talked a lot about education and about the threats to public education and about the money, the big billionaire money looking to end public education in this country, not just change it, not just attack it, not just break it down, but end it and return it to a time in this country where education was strictly a for-profit and only available to those who could afford it. We've often made the joke on this program, although it really isn't a joke, it's truth, that especially the more corporate fascist wings of the Republican Party don't want to return, that they want to return the country to the 50s. I would say that's accurate, but I would say it would be the 1850s or the 1350s, the 1150s, something like that, something a little after the fall of the Roman Empire and before the Renaissance, somewhere around in that area. That would put us in the Dark Ages. It would put us in the Black Plague era. Yeah, that's about right. So we're not just talking about the 1950s. We're talking about some pretty dark times. And it's folks like the ones joining us tonight that are sort of, I really do despise military analogies, but are on the front lines of this debate and that are on the front lines of this fight to not just improve public education, but flat out save it, but try to maintain it, even just keep it from being destroyed. So school board candidates from around the Commonwealth this evening. So excellent. Let's get started, shall we? We have 3 candidates with us. I never define anybody, you know that. I will let them tell you who they are. And let's start with Sarah Kurpel. Sarah, welcome to the program. And welcome your cat to the program. I'm beyond thrilled to see the cat. I got to be honest. My cat was just up here. I'm not quite sure where he is, but he did come up. And he only comes like right kind of close enough that I can't get him. He doesn't like being on camera. But Sarah, welcome to the program. I will ask everybody the same opening question. We start with you, Sarah. Who is Sarah Kurpel and how did you get here?
Well, I'm Sarah Kurpel. Thanks so much for having me, Jeff. And I look forward to hearing from the other panelists today. I am running for school board because I have a knack for compliance. I was a public school teacher for 4 years before I became a head field hockey and women's lacrosse coach, where I went to school for college in the town where I live right now, and I'm raising my children with my husband. I spent the early parts of my year learning about compliance in the NCAA, and I really sort of took to it. And by the time that I left that school, I started really understanding how to refer to policy, how to revise policy, and how to implement policy. And also, during that time, I did my master's in strategic and organizational leadership. It seemed kind of intimidating at first to participate in work like that, but then I just discovered pretty quickly that, number one, everybody's sort of learning as they go. If you operate with consensus and you gather people around the table to hear their feedback, essentially, do a SWOT analysis of circumstances, then we can start to look at our current policy and to adjust and see what our community needs. I am on the ballot this year because my school district has had 3 school board members step down in the past 2 years. One was very much so a mom for liberty type, 1.5 maybe. One was quite absent. And there is very clear rules in our school board about, attendance to school board director meetings. And that was not being enforced, unfortunately. And I was a part of a group to try to elect at the last cycle, and that did not, unfortunately, come to fruition, but we did make a lot of progress. So now this 3rd seat that I am actually running for is an odd one in Pennsylvania. It is a head-to-head race. And the reason why I got here as a head-to-head candidate is because in the person who stepped down from this seat in May, that was after the primary. So I interviewed for the seat. I was not selected. And essentially, I'm just a person who likes the rules, wants the rules to be adhered to. And then if we need to change them, to change them. I just want to make the school district a little bit stronger for our teachers who seem to be a little bit afraid. And I want to be that voice for them. And I also want to be a voice for folks who really are unkind to me on the interwebs. I'm being very intentional with everything I'm doing, both online, both on canvassing, with what I wear, what I do, what I say. And I'm just calling out actions. So even when I get elected, if there's some folks who don't like me and they're very clear about that, I want to make sure that I'm just clear about calling out their actions and not their character, because that's what's definitely happening to me. My character is called to question an awful lot. It stinks, but this was a choice for me to run. So, I got to take some lumps along the way and hopefully get folks to understand that my skills and background and expertise in education is an asset. So yeah, about a little bit over a week to go. And then me and my therapist are going to plan some decompression time about all of this stuff.
Intense treatment after it's all over. We'll get into a lot of what you mentioned along as we move along the way. Sariann, you are here as well. Who are you and how did you get here?
Hey, hi. Nice to meet you, Sarah. I see that we're all cat lovers, which is great. My cat's outside right now. He loves to go outside. I'm Sariann. I was born and raised in Bushkill Township, and I actually live in the same house that I grew up in. My brother and I share that. And I am running for school board candidate for Nazareth School Board for Nazareth District. And my running mate is Jeff Greener. And there are 2 seats open for our region. There are 3 regions in Nazareth. Let me see. I taught in Virginia for 13 years, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th grade. When I moved back home, I taught at Arts Academy Elementary Charter in Allentown for 3 years. And then I taught at Lincoln Liberty for 1 year. Currently, I'm an interim teacher at the Children's Home of Easton. And I've been involved in politics probably since I could lick a stamp, which was, of course, long ago. Now we have stickers. My mom was a Republican committee woman. My dad was a Democrat. I grew up in a mixed household. I've been both a Republican and a Democrat. I've seen both sides of the coin. I've helped with candidates campaigns for I don't know how many years. I never really wanted to run myself. I was just, that's not for me. I will gladly help. I will gladly support someone, but it's not for me. When we started hearing about Moms for Liberty and realized what their agenda was and that they were probably coming for Nazareth School District, was when my friends encouraged me to put my hat in the race and run. So I decided I needed to do that, even though I didn't want to be part of a political campaign. But I think the school board is becoming more political, and it shouldn't be. It should be apolitical. I am an avid reader, and to hear that anybody wants to ban any book is absolutely appalling to me, especially when this country was founded on freedom and rights. And now, as you said, Jeff, we want to take the clock, you just set it back 100, 200, 300 years. And I'm not going to allow that to happen in the Nazareth School District. It's an excellent school district. I want to make sure it maintains that status. And I want to stop some of the things that have already happened in the Pendridge School District, and just make sure that everyone is heard. I know I have an agenda myself, but I want to be able to listen to community members, parents, students, taxpayers, people without kids. Just listen to everybody, because everybody has an idea and a thought, and I think we need to just try to come together at some point. But at this point, I don't know if that's going to be possible to do unless I'm part of the school board. So that's why I am running. And as Sarah said, it's not easy, because you do get attacked and you think, well, I'm running for school board. Why am I getting attacked? They will attack you on any level with anything. And you've just got to have the upper hand and not let it get to you, which is not always easy. So that's who I am, and that's why I'm running.
Jeff Greener, a little old-fashioned here at the program. Ladies first, gentlemen last. So you got somewhat of a brief introduction there from Sariann, but who is Jeff Greener and how did you get here?
After showing the best first name in the world of the host here, I figured you were just encapsulating us in the beginning and end, right?
You're raising the level of it, my brother. Let me just put that. It's the last name I deal with a lot.
That's fair. That's fair. So my name is Jeff Greener. I'm a parent to 4 students here in the Nazareth School District. I grew up in Northampton, right not too far away here, 12 minutes away. And then I went from there. My very first house was here in Nazareth, and that's where I've been ever since. So professionally, I'm a software developer. I run a computer support desk for a mid-sized corporation. I wasn't hugely involved in politics. I was kind of on the side of it for the most part. I usually voted in the nationals, but I didn't worry too much about the locals until COVID started. That was when I really started getting involved. And really, I'm going to say, as someone asked me recently what my aha moment was to start getting involved, it was when St. Luke's made the recommendation to the school board that, we should proceed with masks and the general protocols of how to take care of students that were presenting positive with COVID. And the school board said, yeah, we hear you. We understand that you're, literally the main hospital. You can argue about Cedar Crest or Lehigh Valley, and the area, but we're going to go and just ignore that and do our own thing anyway. And at that point, I couldn't stand it anymore. So it was too late to get involved in that year for running. That was 2 years ago. And we thought we had a fair candidate in our township. Not sure if we actually do in the end. But so I was supporting with other nominees running in the other districts. And then 2 years later, here I am, and I'm doing my best to try to run along the way. As far as what I stand for, it's pretty simple. My focus is on the kids. My focus is on the teachers and trying to maintain the quality that Nazareth always was. They were known as one of the best schools when I first moved here. My fiance moved up here because we were such a good school district. And as time is moving on, we're seeing things that are concerning. Obviously, as we've all talked about, the Moms for Liberty is the primary force behind the group. But the introduction of, and they made a point that they're not banning books. They're not trying to remove them from the entire circulation of the world, just remove them from the public library in our school. You can mince words, but at the end of the day, they're still trying to control what not just their children have the ability to read, but what my children and every other child has the ability to read. And I can't stand for that. I made a speech last Tuesday at the school board meeting itself. It's one thing for a parent to decide what their own child can read. I respect that their whether I agree with them or not, I respect their rights to do so. But it's an entire other thing for them to try to say that no child in the entire school district should be able to read the book. And we're not talking about any random books. We're talking about books that were already approved by the American Library Association. And quite honestly, if we're looking at a professional organization on a national level, 50,000 librarians, to think that any collection that our school board might select is going to be better to choose that book than the national organization, that right there is a level I can't accept. And when it comes out, thankfully, they did make the recommendation to keep the book, though the school board did table it and just kick it down the line a while. But, it's the same principle at the end of the day. You have a small group of parents pushing something that is not the recommendation by the national level organization or the major health organization of the area. And the school board is bending to the whim of a small group of very loud parents and not thinking about the health or the education or the knowledge of the district as a whole. And my hope is to get in there. So as Sariann mentioned, we've got 2 people, moving along in our district. In our area of the Nazareth district. One of them was very much I'm going to say a logical based individual. The other one, not quite so much. So we're hoping we can turn the tides a little bit, and we'll see how things go.
I also want to thank you, Jeff, for beaming in from the International Space Station with us this week. That's very, very kind of you. I mean, that's a hell of an effort. That's a Herculean.
If we're going to support science, we got to support it all, right?
Right, I know. And I knew it was raining outside today, but it is an absolute deluge of rain behind Sariann at the moment. I do kind of want to take the conversation in somewhat, if I can keep myself disciplined enough to do it, in a bit of a chronological point of view. But let's get straight to and no pun intended, let's get straight to the elephant in the room, and that is Moms for Liberty. Again, let me, at the risk of being repetitive, Liz Mkhitaryan was the founder and head of the National Stop Moms for Liberty. Has been I am thrilled enough, honored enough to call friend now. We continue to stay in touch, in between programs and so on. I think she's become a pretty regular listener now, if not live, the recorded version during the week. She's been on the program twice. Moms is rather blatant and rather open in what they want to accomplish. I think, humbly, I know others would disagree, but I think they're really quite, I think they're kind of open about what they want. We know where their funding comes from the private for-profit education industry, the DeVos family, among others, who made their billions on the privatization of education in the state of Michigan, where nearly 40% of all education is now for profit. And if you can't afford it, you don't get it. The PAC and the leader of the PAC that they use is a small office in Manhattan, who's been interviewed publicly before and said straight out that his goal is to end public education in this country and return it to a for-profit status, which would put us again back into the 1850s. Just anybody who wants to jump up, I want to try to keep it as open and free-flowing as possible. Talk to me about Moms for Liberty, your experience with them, what you know of them, what people should know of them if they don't. Talk to me about the force, and it is a force, we have to be honest about it, that is Moms for Liberty.
I'd love to take this. You folks in Nazareth are dealing with the issue that we've already dealt with earlier this spring, which is the book banning in the Pendelco School District. I'm in Delaware County, and we fortunately had 3 individuals step down who were very significantly embedded into that culture. And now our target in the wedge issue with this upcoming election is trans students using public bathroom spaces. So that's something that I've been working on this week and speaking about at our school board meeting. And there has been a decent proposal that the school district has responded to. But just like Jeff said, there is a small, loud, misinformed group creating a problem out of something that's not a problem, or in my case in Pendelco, it's conflating a problem. So like, we have a safety issue in bathrooms, there's students vaping, there's bullying happening, there's all kinds of things happening over there. And there are very few out trans students. There are a handful of out trans students, but this is not a trans issue. It's a safety in bathrooms issue. There's also been assault in our school district. So what's happening behind closed doors, there's all of these groups where it's just an echo chamber. They're saying all of these terrible things about boys in bathrooms, and they're blaming it on marginalized communities. So because it's behind closed doors, things have become very uncomfortable and passive aggressive and sometimes aggressive in our community, and people will not speak up. When I first, because each party and the timing of the vacancy of the seat that I'm running for, each party was able to put a person on the ballot. I am the lone Democrat running for this race, and that only matters because in a very partisan town, I am the only one who's going to look different, and it's going to hamstring me. So what I've been doing is, since I was told I was likely going to lose, I have been kind, but firmly calling out actions of these folks, and everything gets twisted. And then they talk poorly about us in these private Facebook groups, and it just spreads like wildfire. what that does is that Moms for Liberty just operates under the surface in our town. And so you have to be very careful and very savvy about how you're addressing these folks, because a comment that I saw today was, well, you're just saying that because like MAGA doesn't use facts. I'm like, no, that's actually not it at all. So just calling out the things that are not true or the inaccuracies,
Correct.
or sounds like misinformation, because this stuff is underneath the surface and a lot of folks don't see it. I spend a lot of time educating people, and my target, even though I'm like going back and forth keyboard warrior wise with some of these folks, it's really not them. It's everybody who's silently watching. Because honestly, even though I do have a direct opponent, which is rare for a school board race, so usually like a pick 4 situation, for me, I feel like I'm running against silence. And I need to make sure that we continuously are speaking up and speaking out and putting truth out there. And groups like Moms for Liberty and other groups, there's a handful of others, and I don't want to give them any airtime. But, just making sure that we're setting the record straight and still being kind and compassionate to people, because they do believe there's a problem. But unfortunately, they are just putting the target in the wrong place.
Sariann, Jeff, anyone want to hop in on that one?
I'll jump in a little bit. So Sarah mentioned a number of good points there that I wanted to throw in there. So during the primaries, we had a very active discussion in our local Bushkill Township Facebook group. And similar to what Sarah was saying, it's not about necessarily who you're arguing with, it's how you present yourself. And I think that really worked well. And I've got feedback from other people who weren't necessarily participating in the conversations, but they were watching how the conversations went. And that's something that Sariann and I have made a point to. And we are also in a very red district, but we are, while we are Democrats, I'll be honest and I'll say, I'm not an extreme Democrat. I'm certainly much more on the social than I am on the fiscal. And it puts me a little bit in the middle line of things. And I think that gives me a way to reach across the divider, as they say. But what I'm really fighting against is the extremists that are, like you said, they pick one topic, whatever it is, and they try to turn it into this huge bonfire of an issue that it really isn't. And even with the book that we were talking about, the one they're trying to ban right now is Push, turned into the movie Precious. So as I think it was either the superintendent or Director Lay or Dr. Lay, the school board mentioned, I think the book was checked out twice in 17 years, but it's become this huge, giant issue. So, clearly it's not the issue. The issue is that they just want somebody to yell about. They want something to be able to be a talking point. And that's what I'll give credit in a sense to Moms for Liberty. They are very good at figuring out how to incite energy in a population that otherwise wouldn't have normally cared about it, because they say the right words. They scare them. It's the same tactic that we've seen. I mean, we saw with the Trump process, where it's find a target, make them the enemy, and then everyone can unify around that common enemy. Reality doesn't matter. So the best way to confront that is just start talking reality, talk about facts. When we in that same conversation, there was the bathroom, the trans rights conversation. It came up in there as well. And there the big talking point was a trans student participating in sports. That was one of the big talking points on that particular topic. And the way I took it was, listen, I'm not on the school board yet. When I get there, I do have to recognize everyone's concerns. And this fits both the bathroom conversation and also a lot of conversations, really. And that is, to be quite frank, I'm one person. I'm on a school board in one school district. I'm not really the one to make these rules. Who is? When we're talking about a sports event, we're talking about the national or international leagues. What is their decision? What is they, who are the premier experts, as we can establish on, as you talked about it, the compliance and the rules of the sport? What do they say? Those are the rules that we should be following on. We should not be generating our own rules. We're not a little ecosystem amongst the entire world. We are part of the entire world. When we talk about bathrooms, as Sarah mentioned, there's a lot more issues that go on in the bathrooms than how someone's dressed when they walk into it. Whether it's vaping, we had a huge TikTok vandalism spree a year or so ago, and we had pretty much every bathroom but one in each of the schools closed down. Well, that tells me that if you can manage to operate that way, then guess what? We can turn a few of those into single-use bathrooms, and then guess what? We eliminate all those issues. We eliminate the bullying. We eliminate the vaping. We eliminate abuse. We eliminate all those, and not just for trans students, but anyone who doesn't feel comfortable, they can go to a single-use bathroom, and guess what? All the problems are solved. We've addressed the concerns of a trans student that doesn't feel comfortable one way or the other, or doesn't want to have to identify a bathroom, and that's perfectly fine. That is their choice. While me personally, I think they should be able to use the bathroom of their whatever choice they want. And if we're in a corporate environment or something else, it might be different. But when I was traveling with my fiance this year, we looked at airports, things along those lines, and guess what? They all had multiple unisex bathrooms, single person, single use. So it gives a very simple answer. The world has already provided an answer for this. Let's just follow it. It takes care of anyone who's not comfortable with someone who is biologically boy but dressed as a woman or identifies as a woman going into a woman's bathroom. They have a single-use bathroom, and the problem solved. It addresses everyone's concerns, and that's kind of my trumpet point for this whole thing. We have to listen to everyone. We may not necessarily make the choice that we agree with, but we need to make the choice that does address everyone's concerns as best as we realistically can. And when you start going down that line, and you're not trying to call for any kind of extremist one way or the other, it makes the opponents that are coming against us a lot harder to make sense of the argument. They can't yell that I'm extremist when what I'm answering is literally addressing their concern, and all they have left is yelling and screaming and calling me names. The number of times I've been called a groomer because, I didn't automatically assume that every trans person should never be able to participate in any sport. It's kind of laughable, but the best way is just let them look the fool.
Sariann, let me ask you about that. I think we do it's sad that we have to make this admission, but I think we do have to make this admission. Billions, well, it's backed by billionaires, but tens of millions of dollars can buy a lot of impression. And it can buy a lot of what people think is truth, even when it isn't. That misinformation can become perceived truth. It's not by accident that it is trans kids that are the target here, because there isn't a hell of a lot of them. We didn't pick white males, did we? We picked trans kids because there aren't many. Talk about the strategies or the what you have found coming from moms and these right-wing groups, right-wing funded groups, even if the people themselves aren't right-wing, which is one of the great tragedies, I think, of Moms for Liberty, is that there's a significant number of people who are involved in it and who consider themselves members that really don't understand what the end game is here, sadly. And although they probably bear a little brunt of that for not knowing, for being willfully misinformed or allowing themselves to be misinformed without doing the research. But can you talk to me a little bit about what we really probably need to admit is the cleverness, shall we say, of moms, and how that has to be pushed back on?
I think it goes to what we talked about in the very beginning, setting time back to 300 years when these people were kept in the closet. No one spoke about it. And I think that's the kind of little world that they want to create, where everything is perfect. Nobody goes against the norm. Nobody is different. Everybody falls in line. It just kind of reminds me of like the Stepford Wives, where, the wives are all obedient and they do whatever they're asked. There's no arguing. There's no fighting. There's nothing. I think Moms for Liberty appeals to people who, as you said, they don't do research. They don't look into facts. Whatever they're told, that's what they listen to. And I noticed that when you ever try to talk to somebody on, I should say, the other side, or Moms for Liberty, or that they go towards that way, all they want to do is yell, scream, as Jeff said, call names. They never want to talk, just like have a normal conversation without anger, without hatred, without name calling. And anyone you talk to who's on kind of that Moms for Liberty bandwagon, they don't want to talk facts. If you present something to them and they don't know how to answer back, they start screaming at you. They start yelling at you because of, that'll shut people down, and then nothing gets resolved. I feel like a lot of people out there don't pay enough attention to what's going on in the world. Through going to the different areas and dropping literature with the different candidates and talking to different people, so many of them don't even know that what Moms for Liberty is all about. And when you explain it to them, we say, have you heard about Moms for Liberty? Well, those are our candidates we're running against. And they listen and they're kind of shocked. And to me, I'm shocked that people aren't keeping up with this. This is happening in our community. Hatred, anger is being brought into our community. They want to set the clock back. And what happens if somebody in their own family is trans, bi, lesbian, gay? What are they going to do to that person? I can't imagine being in a family that you know what their thoughts are. Do you stay in the closet? Do you leave your family? What do you do? You know, because they can't all be families that, you know, everybody's straight, heterosexual, perfect, you know, things like that. But it just boggles my mind how uninformed a lot of people are. And I said the anger and hatred that the Moms for Liberty candidate seem to just want to push to shut down conversations. I'm all for talking with somebody. I'd love to hear different ideas. Then I set make my mind up and say, okay, I could understand that point of view. However, but they don't want to talk. They just want to yell and scream and count on the people who are angry enough at other things to jump on their bandwagon. So I hope that answers what you were asking, Jeff.
Let me ask about because a couple of you mentioned that this position shouldn't be political. It is inherently political. The second office I ever ran for in my life was school board in Phillipsburg, New Jersey, and was honored enough to be elected first go. But don't we have to realize and or admit that it is inherently political? If you have to campaign for it and run for it and declare a party that you're running for, even if you cross-file, it's inherently political, is it not?
But it didn't used to be.
It's not supposed to be. Clearly, by definition, is an apolitical position. Though, to your point, and this is unfortunately a failing of our electoral process. You're right. You pretty much do need to declare yourself as part of a party and have the backing of that party in order to have a chance to win. But at nature, at the school board itself, and schools themselves should not be political. Now, the events and topics that are coming up, those are what push us to a political biasing one way or the other. But inherently, it isn't. But because of the topics it becomes, and because of the way our electoral system is set up, it almost forces it. My thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it needs to be. School board needs to be there for all teachers, all students, all parents. We can't just start picking, choosing who we are supporting. And that's what's frustrating, is that a apolitical position has now become political. I don't see it turning back either, not after all of this.
So here I come with my policy hat on. It is a political position because we influence policy. So we have to, and you've both said, Jeff and Sariann, about yes, we wanted to be everything for everybody, but what happened when Black Lives Matter started around us in this country? Then all of a sudden it was, well, all lives matter. And that is sort of just like a little example for me about what is happening with this, with how it becomes political, is because there's not going to be policy that serves all students. We look at differentiated instruction with special education, right? You know, we have to make sure that we meet students where they are. If we want equal outcomes, then we have to give them equitable services. And that's what's really, I think, people are struggling with, is that then that means that some communities will get more resources. So that looks unfair. But if the kid who doesn't need as many resources, they might have a faster, further starting point. So, and that sort of encompasses some of the challenges that I face in my school district, is that we can't talk about things, we can't use the buzzwords, the political buzzwords like privileged. We can't use things like marginalized community, because all of a sudden our folks, they're not really exposed to those types of conversations. They don't really want to think that they could be contributing to the problem, but they very quickly get the other side of the coin when they say, why are we making my white straight children feel guilty for who they are? So it's just very interesting. It's just like you get it, my friend. You don't want to make kids feel uncomfortable for who they are. What do you think a trans kid thinks? So, I mean, like, it becomes political because this is human rights types things, and we're making policy for people. And I don't want it to be political either. I want to get back to a time where we're listening to people, where we're talking to people, where we're hearing them, and then we're doing something that makes progress. I go back to that. They're implementing a policy in my school district for a student who identifies other than their biological sex. If they want to use the group bathroom, they then need to go through a process with coming out to their guidance counselor to start that. Now, it puts the burden on the marginalized community, which stinks. I mean, they're already got enough going on, but at least it then gives them an outlet and a process so that if they were to follow it and then use the bathroom that's aligned with their identity, then there is some safety included, including not disclosing information to a parent who might bring harm to the child and be not accepting. So there is some good with that policy. It's not perfect by any stretch, but I think it is a decent effort. So again, like, it only becomes political and mean and divisive, I think, in our current climate. But I think we just have to be okay with, like, anytime there's policy involved in humans, it's going to be political.
So I don't know necessarily that policy forces it to be political. It is the nature of the topics that are coming up, and the nature that the fact that the political parties are basically driven around a human rights or non-human rights perspective. That's what's causing it to be political. But again, by definition of the PA state legislature, it's not a political position. And I mean, I don't want to hammer over detail of the word, but it is kind of a key point in the sense that the policies that we make should not be benefiting one political party or another. It should be benefiting the students. Now, you're right to the point that marginalized students and the nature of the issues that we're dealing with is what ends up pushing it along political party lines. But that's where I'm just gonna. It's definitely the details of, is it political? I agree, it's policy based, but I don't think policy necessarily dictates political.
The framers and founders set up a constitution and a constitutional republic, a democratic republic, a representative republic that protects and gives voice to the minority, but that they should not be ruling. The majority still rules, 50% plus one, or at least that's the way the nation was set up. Although we do see, we see even Kevin McCarthy has had a bit of a coming to Jesus moment, naming the Crazy Eight. And it does seem that group is running Congress at that point. And since running the House, Congress, of course, being both houses put together, but running the House. And of course, if you shut down one of the branches of the legislative, you shut down government to a great extent. Where do we draw the line between, and I do think a school board member, as Jeff mentioned, you have a responsibility to protect the minority from the majority. It's sad that it needs to be done, but we've propagandized people into making these very small minorities, because I can't imagine that there's hundreds and thousands of trans students running around either of your districts. But we've propagandized these small minorities into the target. And elected officials do have a responsibility to protect everyone in the school. How do we balance the two between majority rules and protecting the minority?
Well, I've worked in a handful of places, both very large and also small. And Jeff, I do want to go back to what you said about it. It's the very definition. I'm with you, my friend. I love compliance. I like the spirit and intent of the rules. But I think you had mentioned already, one of you, that Moms for Liberty is successful. It's because they see the perception of the ideas and they run on that, not necessarily the facts. So we're over here trying to explain to people it's not a political role. Okay, well, everybody knows that it is now. So it's like, even though it's not supposed to be, it is. It just is, policy or not. So talking about now to your question, Jeff, about like what we can't be making policy around 4 people. Well, my school district just did. There's 4 trans kids, we think, and that is a policy that this just got made. And it seems like an excessive waste of time. How do we get away from that? Is to put together really terrific focus groups. They need to be regular. We need to have a variety of different groups around the table, and they need to be trackable. Any of us who have been a teacher, we need to have achievable goals. How are we measuring it? How are we tracking it? How are we communicating it out? To my knowledge, if me and my opponent actually were both educators. So Pendelco is going to win in that somebody with an education background is going to be on the school board for the first time in at least decades, we think. So that at least is a good thing coming out of this election, no matter what, is that educators understand how to track and measure progress. And we also understand how to get consensus, educate, and get people on board. I think at that point, what we would be able to do is then we'd be able to share out that data about like what is the perception of the biggest problems in our district. And if that is consistently shared out, regularly shared out, plainly shared out, and then how we're tracking it, then it's going to be very simple and easy to say to families and our students in our community, we did this because this is what you said. We know that you're talking about this third thing on our priority list, but that is coming in the next however long. And then maybe if we find out that it becomes a greater issue and a greater threat, then we continue to address those things. But I think we have to get feedback from families. I don't see that happening in my school district. There's two quick things that I would change, and it would be exactly that. And then also transparent communication and proactive thinking. So that's, I mean, and it's a lot of work. Right. So, and this is a volunteer position. No one's getting paid. We're doing all kinds of things. Like I was canvassing today. I spent, 3 hours of my Sunday when I could have been with my family. And, but I had great conversations with community members, and it affirmed some of the good things that are happening in my district, but also it lifted a handful of things and angles that maybe I hadn't considered about ways that the school could be a little bit different. So it's a lot of work, but I think it can be done.
Sarah, how many students in the district, roughly?
Well, the high school is 1,200, and I think each one of the elementary schools and the middle school. So the middle school would be comparable inside, except for the 3 grades. So about 900 students, and then about 500 in each one of the 4 elementary schools.
So that's a lot of math in my head. So
Sorry.
1,200, 900, 2,100, 4, 5, and 20. So about 4,200 students, roughly.
Approximately. And something I hadn't mentioned, I think I sort of teased it in the beginning, is that currently by trade, I'm a director of athletics in a similarly sized school. So it's that is also something I'm bringing to the table because our school district loves us some sports.
Most districts do. It's over prioritized, unfortunately, even with the genuine life lessons that you can learn from sports. It's over prioritized and over spent on, unfortunately. But that said, I'm trying to make a point that no one has to agree with. Of course, that's why this is a discussion. So you mentioned that you believe you might have 4 trans students out of 4,200. So where's the concern coming from? Coming from the other students saying these people are here next to me, or is it coming from the parents saying these people are next to my students, and the students are going, we don't know who they are and we don't care who they are? Because it seems to me from a distant view that the students themselves are not the ones bitching about this. It's the parents who have been radicalized through a lot of money being spent to propagandize them, Will. So tell me, where's the concern coming from?
I had a brave parent actually share with me that she sent me why she believed what she believed. At first, it sounded like these were things that were happening within our school district. And then she let me know that the story about Leah Thompson, the swimmer from the University of Pennsylvania, she was in a locker room facility, and there is a claim. It sounds to be unfounded, but then a sensationalized claim that Leah Thompson exposed her genitals that were biologically male to another female student. It can only be found on 2 or 3 different websites. So I think it's since been debunked, but it was initially shared in my school district that actively was happening in our locker rooms. So she shared that with me, that the misinformation about it happening in our schools. And she also shared with me another incident where a student, a trans girl, was using the bathroom and then attacked a student who was using the bathroom. A biological female came in and she scared her away and made her feel uncomfortable. So there were two incidents outside of our school district, which was what all this uproar was about. And my school district, the parents and students engaged in a walkout that seemed to be motivated by parents. And what was really sad for me is that some of the girls who spoke at our school board meeting last week claimed they don't feel safe in the bathrooms. But it's not it's not the same issue. They don't feel safe in the bathroom. And I keep trying to get folks to understand, well, why don't they feel safe? Why don't want boys in the bathroom? Tell me more about why you're afraid of boys. And again, I opened up within the beginning of this here, is that there have been assaults in our schools, but they are not assaults from trans students on non-trans students. So it's just a ton of misinformation that's out there, and then amplified, and it spreads like wildfire.
Jeff, it's a hell of a lot easier to attack 0.00095 of the population than it is to attack 1%, 5%, 10, 50, 75%. At the end of the day, isn't that kind of what this is about? That generally speaking, while public schools are not perfect, I was a school board member for one. I'm a product of public schools. While public schools are not perfect, they work pretty damn well, but they're not profitable. And rich people don't like paying taxes to support them. So let's destroy them with propaganda, misinformation, fear. Fear is a very powerfully motivating emotion. And while we do that, we can't pick on a group that's too big. They might be able to fight back. What's the smallest, most marginalized population we can possibly find? We'll have them. Am I wrong?
Right on the money. I mean, there's no better way to unite someone than about fear about a community that they don't identify in. So if to your point of find the smallest group, it at least has to be the group that you don't want to have to worry about trying to recruit anyone from if they're going to be your targets. So the smaller the group, the larger the base you have that you're trying to target from. And there's no better way to incite fear than someone's going to hurt your child. It is, from a biological point of view, we are literally born and geared to protect our kids, protect our young. And that's the same thing. So you present them a fear, you present them a news article, you change the few words in it, or whether you do or not. This happened there, it could happen here. That can be enough for a lot of people to get up on and say, we must make sure this never happens. Now, the fact that it hasn't happened, irrelevant. Meanwhile, we can look at school shootings as something that genuinely needs to be protected against and is kind of falling off the conversation topic anymore. We're more worried about a biological boy that identifies as a girl in our school than we necessarily about a actual school shooting, which we've had. I think I saw 31 so far this year. And you don't even hear about them anymore in the news, unfortunately. So you're right. I mean, it's a matter of finding the target, finding something that's, like you said, fear is the best motivator you can have, and we've seen that. I mean, I hate to politicize it more than we already are, but if we go back, 7 years ago, we saw just how effective fear can be at motivating a population.
But that is the point, though, isn't it? I wonder about the hypocrisy of this issue too. So we have a student who reports being, made to be uncomfortable by sharing a bathroom facility with a trans student. It would seem to me if we put the same logic against that as we do about guns, this would be the very damn wrong time to talk about it, wouldn't it? We shouldn't talk about that now. Everybody's very emotional about it, and we shouldn't talk about it. This really isn't the time to talk about new legislation. We should really all calm down, get some distance from the happening, and then perhaps we could revisit it.
Forget you should buy some more guns too.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's actually already someone from there's a House member from Shocker, I believe he's from Texas, who, as a result of the happenings in Maine, would like to arm, all the teachers again. Of course, they'd have to buy it. And of course, that's the ultimate end of this, isn't it? Is to drive arms sales. Who can tell me or wants to tell me about what they've encountered on the campaign trail, either a specific recall or generally? Sariann mentioned earlier that you've been a bit taken aback at how little people know about the issues in there as an election in the first place. Tell anyone who, well, you've been quiet for a while, Sariann, so I'm going to pick on you now. Because you're in the minority. You're the only one here with blue glasses, so I'm going to pick on you.
They're turquoise.
Are they turquoise? Well, I'll go pick on you even more then. How about that?
Okay.
That said, what have you encountered on the campaign trail? Have you generally been received well, even by folks who might not agree with you? Has it been rough? Have you received threats? Because we've seen massive numbers of threats to candidates across the country for even the most local and simple of offices. Tell me about your experience so far on the campaign trail.
Mostly we've been going to Democrat household, or maybe there's a household where there's an independent and a Democrat, or a Democrat and Republican, but we're not going to full Republican households because we just don't know how we're going to be met. Most of the conversations have been good. We have had some people who have just politely said no thank you. Haven't had too many negative ones. I know earlier I think this was the primary, a friend and I were out, actually for last year's election, we were out putting on get out the vote things, no parties on it, anything. And it just said, reminder, November, the date's coming up, get out to vote. My friend had someone actually get in a car and chase her down the road and threaten, to harm her and smash her lights and all these things like that, just because she left a reminder to get out to vote on the door. It wasn't specified to any person in the household. It was just, hey, everybody, make sure you vote. Other times, you're a little hesitant because you've heard all of these things about people getting shot for just for turning around in somebody's driveway or knocking on the door. So you have to be very cautious. It can be scary. You don't know if maybe somebody's moved in that household. And when you're dropping something off, even if it's a newsletter to inform them of an upcoming election or candidates that are running, you don't know who's there in that household for sure. So it can be very scary, but mostly the people I have talked to are receptive to our newsletters. Jeff and I both have had some good conversations. My other friend and I have had some good conversation with people that we've talked to. You're always going to have somebody who is against what you're doing. Those people you really don't have a conversation with. They're just angry. They want you to get away from them and stop giving them as propaganda. Just like the things that we've run into on social media when groups in our area have been asked people to share things, to share candidate information, and then you get attacked on that when the group said, well, we asked for candidates to share information. So you kind of have to tread lightly when you're out there because, again, you just don't know who you're coming across. I really haven't put myself in a situation where I'm going to be talking to Moms for Liberty candidates or Republican candidates who are very radical because, again, I think it comes with being a woman. I don't want to be in that situation where I'm alone at somebody's door and, they're angry and screaming at me and I'm hoping I can make it to the car in time. So, luckily, like I said, we haven't had too many awful conversations, maybe a couple uncomfortable ones, but for the most part, it's been okay. But I think that's who we're targeting, though. We're trying to get the Democrats out to vote, especially in this local election, because the number of people who come out for local elections is absolutely horrible. And those are the ones that decide things like the school board and how our taxes are being spent. Are our roads going to be paved? And I think mostly what we're trying to do right now is just educate people on how important these elections are and that they need to get out to vote. So I know that probably doesn't answer all of your question, but it's been okay so far.
7:02 Eastern Time. We have entered the second hour of the Kennedy Effect. We are live with you for the 29th of October, 2023. Thank you all for being there. If you are with us live, awesome. We're thrilled to have you. If you are watching us in smaller little bits throughout the week, as a growing number of you are, we thank you very much for that as well. If you have joined us live after we began at 6 p.m., please always remember that our YouTube channel is there. We are live on it now, and after we finish, the video stays right there. Our YouTube channel is also called That Other Side of Information. It is also the well, it's all these things here, because I'm going to cheat. I'm going to look back here because I'm old and I don't remember everything. And I'm even going to pick up the freaking microphone and look at it. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Patreon, TikTok. We're all there. That Other Side of Information. And we are on the platform formerly known as Twitter, for whatever that's worth anymore. I don't know. I will say, if Mr. Musk makes it paying, I will be leaving there, because I'm not exactly drowning in money over here, I can tell you that. I will mention quickly before I get to the business end of the program here at the reset, Sarah Ashley says, please move to Union County. So if things continue to go south in Delco, you now have a new place to go. But that said, wherever you are across the Facebook universe, thank you for being there. We hope you are enjoying the program. If you're new to the program, welcome. We hope you will become a regular to every individual, every group, private and public, to every page, everywhere that has allowed us to be on your little corner of the Facebook universe. Thank you very much. We could not do it without you. We could not be here if you are not there. Our home group Facebook page is That Other Side of Information. We are on right there now. We are on there now as well. He tried to say in English. It didn't sound like it, but it really was. And I'm also at my own Facebook, Jeff Kennedy. You can find us there as well. That's where I seem to be seeing the comments from. It's been a good chat so far, a bit quiet, but I will always take your questions and comments there as well. We are live on YouTube, That Other Side of Information. The recording stays there after we are done. Sergeant Mac follows us at 9 p.m. The Villain's View live on That Other Side of Information and hot101.net from 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. There is nowhere you cannot listen to us if you can connect to the internet, literally around the globe. Our program, our humble program, with the great help and extensive reach of hot101.net, reaches about 250,000 people around the globe each and every week, and we could not do it without them either. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. Any device that can connect to the internet, you can listen to us on it, but you don't need the main web page. You can use the Apple app for Apple devices, Google Play Store for Android devices, and if you have any other type of device, go to the TuneIn radio app, go up to the search bar, type in hot101.net, and you will be listening. The great thing about the hot101.net apps is you don't need to do anything for them. You download them and you are good to go. No registration, no pay, no DNA sample, no firstborn, no social security numbers, none of that stuff. You tap it, it opens, you're listening, done, period, end of story. And we are also live on the TCP Media Group. Also, our sponsor, paygive.org. You have to buy things. Paygive.org is a financial transaction app. You can go there and buy gift cards, make financial transactions, buy things, shop places. You have to buy things. When you do, you pay for them. You can actually take a portion of the financial transaction that you make through PayGive and designate it to a charity of your choice. Are you an animal lover and you want to dedicate money to the ASPCA? You can do it through PayGive. Have you had someone in the family who might be affected by cancer? You can donate to the American Cancer Society. Are you a child advocate? You can donate to the Shriners, and I believe the Shriners Hospital and I am blanking on the other hospital. That's really embarrassing. You can donate there as well. Whatever's important to you, you can donate a purchase of any or a portion of any transaction that you might make through PayGive and to a charity or a cause of your choice. Veterans, seniors, children, health related, you name it, it's there. And with about 50,000 vendors, including the largest vendors in the country, Home Depot, Lowe's, Amazon, Target, Walmart, you name it, they're all there. They're all there. You can shop And when you do, take a portion of that transaction and put it to a cause of your choice. Paygive.org. You have to buy things, and when you do, you pay for them. Why not give while you do it? We will open up the phone line later in the program. I do not yet know how long everyone is staying. Nobody is being chained to the desk or to the computer. You go when you need to go. Just let me know when you are so that we can say a proper goodbye to you so that you don't disappear. Happy to see the folks in the chat at YouTube as well. And again, if you missed any of the program, YouTube really is the best place to go. St. Jude's, that's what I was trying to think of, George. Thank God George is here, because George fills in all the synapses up here that don't work. And there's a damn large number of them. And thank freaking Lord he's here, because bloody hell, how I forgot that. I don't even know. I just saw about 60 St. Jude's commercials during the day today, didn't I? And I still can't remember it. God, bloody hell. So it's a good thing George is here. Let's be honest. I'd be sitting here in an empty room talking to a wall or something if it wasn't for George. I wouldn't know how to turn anything on. I wouldn't know how any of this. I'd picked it up and thrown it across the room with what's little left of my strength. Anyway, so we return. We have school board candidates from Delaware County and from the fine Nazareth area school district here in Northampton County, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We're talking about all things surrounding school boards, school policy, on and on and on. We can revisit some of the darker things, I think, surrounding school boards a bit later if you are willing to stay and we get the opportunity to revisit. But I'd like to ask about some other school-related policies, if I could, please. And let's dive straight into the deep end. There's really a couple of biggies that would be property taxes and charters. Let's talk charter schools. Happen to think that charter schools actually do fulfill a very necessary piece of the pie in the educational component. They reach children that learn in different ways. I am a visual learner. You could send me a one-page flyer on your campaign. It will take me an inordinate amount of time to slug through it. I'm a terrible reader. I jump all over the page. I can't concentrate. I'm just bad at it. But I am a visual learner, and I will watch documentaries until my eyeballs fall out. And that's how I learn. Most of my vocabulary I learned from listening to other folks. And some would argue that I still don't get that right anyway, but that's how I learn. And I do think that these charters can fill in a space that the public schools can't. My problem comes when they become for-profit entities, when they receive $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 per student. But just darn it, gosh, isn't it amazing how they only spend maybe half of that and the rest of it goes in their bloody pockets? Talk to me about charter schools. Well, I should back up. Let me back up. There are charter schools that are run by the public school districts that run very, very well. They run well economically. They run well outcomes per dollar, student success, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Talk to me about these private for-profit company entity run charters and cyber charters. What is your position on them? What do you think about them? Floor is open. Whoever wants to jump first.
I'm absolutely biased because I work for a public charter school. I also worked, I've been working in the charter school sector since 2018. My first role was at Mastery Schools in Philadelphia, one of the largest charter school networks in the school district. The largest across Philadelphia and Camden. A really great experience, and worked with very incredible, smart folks. We also had our own foundation, so we did a little seed granting, mini grants for teachers annually. So that was really cool. And we were all aligned around our mission. It was really, really wonderful. And now in my school district and the Pendelco school district, there are two charter schools. One is a public charter school, not for profit, and one is a for-profit charter school. That both of them, when students and families choose to go to charter schools, there's always a reason. So the charter school is not the problem of the school district. It is a symptom of a larger issue. Why? And that's something that I want to do as a school board member, is to find the answer of why is it that families are selecting a charter school and that is not the neighborhood school. What needs are we not serving that we could dig into? As far as cyber charters and the places that don't have brick and mortars, as well as for profit. There absolutely needs to be more statewide legislation about fair funding, about how we handle and like hold accountable those places. And I think that there's been a lot of conversation about it, especially since Governor Shapiro had talked about the voucher system again. And thank goodness it didn't make it onto to any kind of budget. But there's a ton of misinformation, again, surprise, about charter schools, that they're all problematic. But they're just not. I think that you said it pretty well, Jeff, is that they do serve a great need for folks who do not do well in a traditional neighborhood public school, perhaps in a more rural area. Like Pennsylvania is very incredibly rural, so getting to a neighborhood school is a significant burden on the family. So there is a lot of benefits to the charter school system, but only public ones. I think the for-profit stuff, it's I don't even honestly have the words and about it. Is because it's taking money away from children. It's taking money away from the neighborhood. It's taking money away from teachers to benefit usually one person. And it's not good for kids.
Anyone else?
I'm going to jump in and piggyback what Sarah said. I worked for 2 charter schools when I came back to Pennsylvania, and both of them were wonderful charter schools. I spent the most time at Arts Academy Elementary, and of course, we're focused on the arts. We had theater, we had dance, we had creative movement. We incorporated lots of art into our curriculum and into our classrooms. And it was phenomenal how you saw some of the kids just come alive when we were doing things like that. And that I think that school was quite successful because there was so much talk about cutting out programs like music and art and band and things like that. What happens to those kids? What happens to the artistic kids? One of my former students, I can see her. I can see she's done stand-up comedy. She's in artistic activities, and I can really see her going into something in the future. That school was a huge success for her. I also think, as Sarah said, it benefits the kids who just can't learn in that crowded, typical public school, and especially in Allentown, where there are just so many crowded classrooms, and kids who maybe are introverted, they kind of fall through the cracks and they don't get what they need. And again, also piggybacking on what Sarah said, if they're losing students, they need to stop and ask, why are we losing students? Not blame the charter school. Oh, the charter school's here and they're taking away our students. Why are parents opting to send them to a charter school in the same town, but it's a different type of school? So that's where you have to come. I worked in public school too in Virginia, and there was always rhetoric about how awful charter schools were and they're taking money away from students and blah, blah, blah. And I jumped on that bandwagon without really knowing why. And then when I came up here and I started working for an organization that worked with students in charter schools, or worked with the teachers who worked with students in charter schools, I started to realize, hey, there's not a lot of difference here. These people are here for the same reason other teachers in public schools are here. It's for the kids, and they want to do the best thing they can for the kids. So I kind of did like a 180. And then when I started working for them, I was really happy that my instincts were correct. But I realized there are ones out there that are for profit, and the only thing they're out there for is to make money. The schools that aren't making money, the nonprofit ones, are there for the students and want students to be able to learn in a different type of setting. So I will definitely talk about that with anybody.
So is that where the cutoff is, Sariann? Is that the distinction that we need to make? That because as you are well aware, the Bethlehem City School District runs some charters. They're very successful. They're very they have great outcomes. It's when these private for-profit corporations run these charters and the public money just gets thrown at them because the parents opt to go to there. And again, Americans like choice. It's perfectly fine. But when they're receiving 10 or 12 or 15,000 a head, and just like I said, just
gosh, isn't it amazing how they only might spend half of that or a third of that, but they take all the money and then the rest of the money goes in their pockets. Technically speaking, by the letter of the law, for-profit education is for-profit charter schools are illegal in Pennsylvania. But again, if you receive 15 grand a head and you only spend 5 of it, you keep the other 10. And we know where the other 10 is going. There's a private corporation that runs a charter school in Easton. They've had 8 principals in how many in 3 years or something now?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They go in, they get paid real well, and then run for the hills. So is that where the distinction is, that when the public district is involved in these charters, which again, I'm going to be very repetitive here, I think offer a very valuable alternative for students who learn differently. It's one of the great advances that we've made in education. I originally went to college to teach. It's one of the great advances we've made in our society, is realizing that some children learn in different ways. Some are more visual, some are written, some can be left with a book and can go into the corner of the room and absorb it in just a few minutes. Others need one-on-one to step through. They need those teachers' aides. They need the constant attention, but that none of the children in the room, regardless of how they learn, are any less important than any of the rest of them. So these schools do matter. They do reach a certain group of students that a standard mainstreamed, if you will, public school doesn't reach. And it's nice that alternative is there. It's when the goal becomes profit rather than educational outcomes. That's where the problem comes in. It would seem to me. Who agrees? Yeah. Who disagrees? Who disagrees?
Well, a lot of times, charter schools have smaller populations in the classroom, so kids get more one-on-one attention. Where, as I said before, sometimes they get lost in those larger classrooms with 30, 35 students. And also, when you have a for-profit school, maybe the parents have to pay something. That leaves out a whole slew of people. The Arts Academy charter school that I worked for was one that really served minority populations. I think it was like 91% or something like that of the students were of the minority population. And those kids need good schools too. Those kids need good teachers to teach them, and those kids need to help make them those teachers need to help them make sure that they have a good way to continue their education and be the best they can be. Sometimes I think kids in public school can kind of get lost and not get that one-on-one attention that some of them so desperately need. So yeah, that's where I stand. The for-profits and the nonprofits. School should not be a business. It shouldn't be a business that makes money.
Jeff, this leads, I think, into the discussion of vouchers. Where do you stand on charter, for-profit, or privately run charter, and into the voucher system?
So I'm going to be honest, I have a lot of ignorance on this topic. Sariann has touched how, we've heard a lot of stuff that got me on the bandwagon against the charters, but then I've also seen some positive charters. So I don't know personally enough information to have too much to weigh in on it, to be honest. I certainly can understand how if we turn into the voucher system that we're going to end up defunding the public schools to the point where they can no longer operate. There is the debate
which would seem to me is the goal.
Yeah, and as you've mentioned, and I've certainly heard that as a talking point. And I want to be careful that I don't fall on any topic, any pure talking points without enough personal information to see through anything that could be, over dramatized. To be frank. On either side. That's how I try to remain as neutral as I can on topics. Now, one thing I've certainly seen where some charter schools are benefiting, as Sariann mentioned, either a underprivileged group. What I don't know is if the money that was going to that charter school went to the public school, would the public school better be able to handle them as well? Is it a lack of funding that does it? Is it a lack of ability that does it? And I don't have the clear answer on that. Certainly anything that is a for-profit is going to be pulling money out of the educational system. And as soon as you start talking about like private schools where you've got let's call a spade, the wealthier class providing their children a higher quality education than everyone else, you immediately start with that differential and the the old money class system that starts causing the problems everywhere we see, from opportunities to education to knowledge to where that school goes to. And the moment you start with that, you then end up with everyone else, anyone that's in the public school, having a disadvantage to those that are going to those private schools. So those are the risk points that I see. I don't have enough details to see how it all plays out, though.
The voucher system doesn't cover the cost of some of these charters and private schools either. And the charters and privates especially can pick and choose the students that they take. So vouchers don't solve anything, does it, Sarah? Does this myth of school choice? A poor Black family from Center City, Philadelphia, Center City, Pittsburgh, Erie, I don't know, name the Uniontown for that matter, is not going to receive enough money in a voucher to go to Moravian Academy or to go to, I don't know, name the most prestigious private institution in your area, because I can't, but it doesn't cover it. And even if it did, the private institution still gets the opportunity to say, yeah, well, darn, thanks for the application, but you just didn't quite make it.
Yeah, so I did some enrollment in the city of Philadelphia during the pandemic. When I worked at Mastery Schools, it was really interesting to see what the city of Philadelphia does. And it not dawned on me, that's probably not the right word, but the school board in the school district of Philadelphia is appointed, and that it is not an election. So that is a point of distinction there. But so many schools in Philadelphia proper were, in essence, failing. Some of them were the most dangerous schools in the country. I'm specifically talking about Simon Gratz. And now that has been taken over by Mastery Charter, which is my former employment. And by the way, like, I speak very highly of them, even though they eliminated my role during the pandemic. But so I still speak very highly for the work that I experienced there. I think there's a lot of reasons why. Now, you asked specifically, Jeff, about vouchers, but I want to go back to the charter distinction for just a moment, because you think about why charters can be so successful, and it's because of all of the resources and funding that typically goes into a public school that has a typical teachers union, that has to fund pensions, that has a fleet of buses. The operating costs for a traditional neighborhood public school is just something that a charter school does not have to pay for. So you think about why a school like a system like the Mastery charter schools, they would be so successful in it and completely turning around one of the most dangerous high schools in the country, is because the money that they would then have to invest in certain things, they're able to divert to improvement of quality of instruction, in providing more opportunities for one-on-ones. So I just want to make sure that folks understand, why is it that some charter schools can do this and the public schools failed? It's not that the public schools failed. It's just that they spread their resources out to help protect their teachers, to help give them a teachers union. And a lot of times working in the charter school sector can be very difficult because there's a high level of turnover, because there's just not the same job security as there is in a neighborhood public school. So I really want to highlight that. Next, about the vouchers. You've mentioned, everybody has a different price tag. So if there is the school voucher system, is there a possibility that a family would go to a school that costs a certain amount? Let's just say, just for the easy math, the voucher that they receive is $10,000, but the school where they attend would be $5,000 a year. I know that that's not probably going to happen, but then the family then would be able to keep the $5,000 remainder of that voucher. And then what happens to it? They buy things. They buy things on their own. That is a real example that I did a little bit of research on. It's not that they don't have to turn that money back. It's in some circumstances, like a check is cut. So we just need to be very careful about, like, if there is some type of a voucher system or there needs to be some sort of placement for a child, typically it is the onus of the school district to make that placement happen. And I think in that case it could really work. But just doling out vouchers to people where there is they're just using, they're giving families money to spend, I just don't think that there's any checks and balances there. I think there is a way that maybe it could work, but like ultimately vouchers is not something I'm in favor for any type of proposal that I've seen.
You mentioned teachers union in your answer. What do the three of you think about the existence of teachers unions? teacher tenure, which is something that doesn't exist in most of the private sector, even though public schools are the public sector. We talk about removing money out of the system. You know, the founders, backers, political action committees behind Moms for Liberty have been very clear they want to end public education. Republicans have gone after teachers unions for decades, at least since Nixon, if not prior. When we talk about vouchers or privately or charters run by private corporations, they always want to do it with public money. I always find it so ironic, again, that Republicans want to run and control things that they say they don't want to exist. They don't want public schools to exist, but damn, they want to control them. And what they really want to control is the money. What about taking some of that money and back to supporting teachers and giving them what they need? The Trump administration in the 2017 massive billionaire tax cut took away the write-off for teachers when they bought supplies for their own classrooms. It was targeted at teachers. It was specifically targeted at teachers to make them not spend that money to fill in, as so many teachers do, to fill in the spaces where their districts the spaces that their districts don't fill in. That's probably the way I should say that. Fix my own grammar here. What about support for teachers and teachers unions? Are you generally supporters of them? Are we supporters of tenure? Is tenure a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Isn't the ultimate, how many things in society, Jeff actually talked about that, the private sector has actually given us a solution to the quote unquote bathroom problem. It's given us a solution. Republicans always love private sector solutions. How many private sector organizations do better when they are stripped of financial resources? But yet that seems to be the only answer that we hear from the right to solve public education, is to strip it of everything. Shouldn't we be supporting teachers and teachers unions? Whoever wants it.
I've never been in a union. Virginia is a non-union state. Charter schools don't have unions. I can see the positives and negatives of both sides, but I do think we need to support teachers. The $250 tax credit that I get for what I used to spend in my classroom is probably I probably spent closer more to $2,500 when you're buying things for your walls and buying treats for the kids and buying equipment for a science project or materials for a science project. A lot of teachers end up not doing that because they just don't have the money. It did take a big chunk out of my salary, but it's for the kids, and you kind of have to go along with what you want to do for the kids. But it's frustrating when there isn't that support for the teachers, because what do? Okay, you just throw paper at them and, here's your workbook, here's your worksheet. I think unions were good when they first started because you needed to make things equal. I think unions are good when it comes to negotiating for higher salaries, because in Virginia, we had an education association, which I was part of, but even in front of our own school board, we didn't have much leverage. So taxpayers were coming and saying, we want to support the teachers, raise our taxes so they can have more money. It didn't go through. So that's frustrating too, when you're putting your time and effort into the students. You're going to spend the same amount of money you did before of your own earnings so that your kids can have what they need to experience a great lesson. But you don't have the backing of the school board. What do? You don't do anything. You can't. So that's where the unions come in. And I think they are very supportive of teachers, and that they want to make sure that the teachers stay there, because if you've invested all this money and time into a teacher and they turn around and leave in 3 years, like charter schools do, because teachers want to go someplace where they're going to make a little bit more money, have a little bit more benefits. You don't want to lose good teachers, and that's what ends up happening in a lot of these schools that are low paying, nonprofit, and it's difficult for them, frustrating for them, but at the same time, people have to make a livable wage.
Should charters be forced to take the same student cross section of student population that the public schools have to have to
Yeah.
take?
Yeah, I mean,
Why do
had,
charters get to pick that they don't get to take any students of special need?
oh, I don't know about all charters, but the charter that I worked, the Arts Academy Elementary, we always had students with special needs. We've always had students that were low income. I don't think we ever discriminate. I don't see how you can do that. But anyway, we never discriminated. We had all walks of life at Arts Academy. And that was one of the things I was most proud of, is that you had a family that was struggling and maybe on welfare and could be homeless at a time. And you also had the kids that were very well off and the families that were very well off. And we had special needs kids that had seeing support animals, and kids that needed to have special ed classes and things like that. I never saw that at Arts Academy. Not that I'm saying it doesn't happen at other charter schools, but I never saw them pick and choose.
Jeff,
So I think.
No,
What?
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Please finish.
I was just going to say they need to take the same students that the local public school takes, because the local public school doesn't discriminate either. They can't pick and choose, but I don't think charter should be allowed to do that.
Jeff, you're the self-described more fiscal conservative here of the lot. Let me ask you about property taxes. They continue to be the main funder for public education. Should they be? Or is it time to find a completely different formula, different source? I do know that Republicans like to drag this one out of the closet every now and then, like the Christmas china, and talk about eliminating property taxes, but their plans to do so disproportionately makes the money up on the backs of the poor and the middle class. Shocker. I'm sure everybody's shocked by that. I'm glad you're all sitting down. That said, it is not a terrible idea. In fact, it's overwhelmingly popular in polling throughout the Commonwealth, that, and actually throughout the country where most states do this, that the main funding revenue source for public schools is local property taxes. It is, in essence, a rent on property that you supposedly own. What's the solution here? Do we need an entirely new formula? Do we need a more fair distribution of property taxes? Is there, way back in ancient times, when we carved on stone tablets, when I was on a school board, we actually talked about categorizing, that's not the right word, scaling property taxes, that if you had one child in the system, you paid more. If you had multiple children, you paid more. If you were a senior whose children were completely through the system, you paid less. And besides, seniors needed the break anyway. Most of them were on fixed incomes. What's the answer here?
That's a lot of good
support?
questions there. Yeah. So I was preparing for the whole the tenure versus union conversation. So I don't know. I don't have a clean answer. So when I was talking to actual teachers, they were suggesting that the funding that we have in Nazareth isn't so much the issue, so much as the distribution of the funding. I've also heard that the assessment process of the property taxes that we have in place is woefully out of date. And if we simply did a reassessment, we'd probably resolve a lot of those issues. I definitely, from the things that you threw out there, while I can understand and see a benefit in giving a break to perhaps those who are retired and already on the tail end of the sunset of their lives, so to speak, and understanding that they do need a break as they're starting to leave the working force, I'd be very hesitant on scaling the property taxes to the number of children that you have in there, because you're going to create that same well, I get it as a point of the tax. You're using the taxes for school, therefore they should be based upon the children. But this is where we start to realize that there's a lot more socialist concepts in our world than we'd like to use the tag for. The same as fire department and everything else. We all pay into it. We all benefit from it. I'd be worried about having it scaled based on the number of kids you have. You're going to end up, especially unless it was done on a national level, you're going to end up with a distribution of people in an area that's not going to do well. You're going to end up with very low funding where you have the most students, and because the people that generally have the most kids, to be frank, generally end up with the smallest property because the money is going to the kids. So they're not going to have it to give. And the same as the seniors need that break. If you have a household with a lot of kids, I mean, I've got 4 kids. We're not exactly swimming in it. Just to be honest here. So I don't know. I don't think the scaling based upon kids is the right direction. I could understand giving a break to the seniors because they've been paying into it their entire lives up to that point. I don't know how you would do that in a fair and equitable way. I think an assessment of the property taxes on a on a defined and regular basis, period. So it's not a bias, hey, we need money this year, let's go do an assessment. I think that's the wrong approach. But as Sarah loves to point out, the policy, if we have a policy in place and it is followed, that could eliminate a lot of the issues and keep the distribution of the wealth being fair. Now, we still then, if you scale up larger than Nazareth, you can still end up with communities that have far too many kids and far too small income, and that is where the state needs to come in. And as Sariann has mentioned a few times, there's a lot of money that is due to us from requirements that the school has that were supposed to be funded on a state level that are not. We're still supplying those requirements, but the funding is not being distributed to the school districts as it needs to be. Proper legislation to get that funding that passed through would probably alleviate a lot of these issues as well.
Is it time to look at a replacement of the property tax and push these something on more to a sales tax or or income? A more broad-based, tax?
I mean, maybe income. I don't know. I mean, properties, you're still living here, so why wouldn't you be paying into it? I don't know. I don't know that property tax is necessarily the worst solution in the world. I don't know. I'll be honest.
What did you want to say about unions?
Oh, that's okay.
I skipped you over on you. I skipped you over.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. How a program goes, right?
Well, sometimes somebody just says something and what few light bulbs are left up here, they go on before they burn out. And then I ask the question before I forget about it. And sometimes I do.
George fills in for you, right?
Yeah, that's why George sends me messages like, you forgot that, or you were wrong about that, or he Googles.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. So, throughout my life, I've been up and down on unions as a generalized concept. I think they were certainly when unions started out, they were absolute necessity. We watched time and again where industry had crushed the people that were working for them and unions needed to spring up. I've also seen situations where unions have gotten too strong and they start crushing the very industries that they're trying to protect the workers for. You can look at various automotive industries. You can look at, if I remember correctly, I think it was Ford had an issue with their union where the union were demanding such requirements that would put the company out of business. And they said, listen, you can either agree to something less or we can just fold up shop. So that's where, at that point, where the union has gone too strong. I could be wrong on the details, but the potential still exists anyway. Now, at the same rate, teachers' unions, at least in Pennsylvania, our local unions, I have not heard of any issues. I've heard some issues in New Jersey where I work, but again, my information is only as good as the media sources that we have in there. I think in general, I think we do need to protect the teachers. I think at the end of the day, your school is no better than the teachers you have in it. So of all the unions, I'm certainly far more supportive of a teachers union than anywhere else. Now, if you flip the other question that you had in there, the tenure question, now that one I'm a lot shakier on. I think having a guaranteed tenure creates the potential, not to say it always happens, but the potential for a teacher to go, I'm here, I'm guaranteed here, I no longer need to perform. And I think we need to make sure that we reward a young teacher or an old teacher, whoever, based more upon performance and more upon the way the students are performing in the class. And this also comes to a whole other conversation of how do we evaluate performance within a classroom. As I watch more and more with my own kids, the education is being directed based upon passing the test and not about the education as a whole. And that needs to be changed. At the same rate, we have the funding structure and the formula where it's based upon how well the students test determines how much money you have. So we have a self-fulfilling cycle that just creates students who do very well on a particular test, but have no idea about the information around that test that comes into it. And I don't know how we get off of that track while still maintaining uniform testing. This is a question that needs to be solved, and I think it's tending us on a both state and national level down a road that is not good. But this goes back to, again, the tenure. I don't care how long you've worked there. I care how well you're doing at teaching the kids. And I think it should be rewarded as such. Do I think a teacher should always have to worry whether their job is going to be there or not? No, I think there should be basic metrics as long as you're at least in the middle and you're not just phoning it in as you'd say in a corporate job. Then you're fine. I think you absolutely shouldn't have to worry about losing your job. So there should be that security, which also allows the teacher to be doing the best job they can. But we want to make sure we're rewarding people not just upon how many years they've been in the position, but how well they're doing the job.
Sarah, talk to me about property taxes. I know in the
in the collar counties surrounding Philadelphia, the Philadelphia suburbs, property taxes are an issue everywhere. Certainly when I was in New Jersey, they were an issue. Phillipsburg was a very poor town. It remains one. Property taxes were high because actually property values were so low. But talk to me about property taxes, especially in the collar counties where the properties are expensive already. And that pushes, and even if the tax rate itself is relatively low, the total dollar amount is still pretty high. Where do you stand on property taxes as the funding, as the primary, not sole, but primary funding formula for local public schools?
So it's a complicated one. Delaware County has some of the highest and some of the most reasonable in the state. There's just like it runs the gamut. There's also, within this footprint, there is the Chester area or the Chester School District, as well as I think of another one that is very successful and right around the corner. Let's just say the Radnor School District in Delaware County. Both school districts are pretty similar in size. Radnor has a pretty fair funding model, whereas the city of Chester is essentially taking over the school district, and a lot of their elementary schools have then been taken over by community charter schools. Through that, you think about what happens to subsidized housing and then property taxes in some of those areas and the number of children that are available. And there's just so many that need to be educated. There's so many variables that a straight property tax for the entire state just does not fit. Thinking about our rural communities, the school where I work is out in a little bit more of a rural area, and there just aren't, it is a much larger area, so the resources that are needed to be pooled is greater. You're thinking about bus transportation, the lack of public transportation. There's so many different variables that weigh into this. In the city of Philadelphia, what we benefited a lot from was partnerships with other nonprofit groups, tapping into funding for after school activities so that didn't have to come out of the operating budget. So there is a real collaborative way to inch away from property taxes, but it is a multi-leveled, multifaceted approach. I think that there are some areas that use referendums to vote on special funding for certain projects as related to funding schools. I believe some states have had some success with using taxes on, say, gambling or legalizing marijuana, using some of those taxes. I think that there are some schools that have had some success with solar panels to help with cost-saving measures across the board. There's a lot of different ways. There's really not going to be a one fixed solution for every school. But I know that I received in my township, I received a letter earlier this year that my property, it was very interesting. In the same year, I got a letter that that the property value of my home had increased something like 30 or 40%. They just went and reevaluated everything at the county level. But then within a few months, I received a letter from the state because of the type of property that I had. I was going to directly benefit, or my family was going to directly benefit from the taxes that were coming from the gambling commission. So it's just like it was a cool surprise, and also just like an innovative way to manage what needs to happen. We talk a lot in my school district where I live, that there is some inequities with funding, that there are per pupil dollars spent is like, we're right in the middle of the pack. So that's kind of a good place to be. But then right around the corner in our neighbors, we have one of the highest per pupil funding, and then some of the lowest. So Chester School District is one of the lowest, as well as William Penn. There's a lot of inequities there and a lot of students that just don't have any other options because there's enrollment caps in the charter schools. And then in the Garnet Valley School District, there's a high level of funding, and there's a really high socioeconomic status that's happening in those neighborhoods. So it's very interesting within a 5-mile radius what the span of the needs and the funding is. So I think I'm going on a little bit of a rant or just a little bit of a tangent here, but I don't think that there's going to be a one, like a single answer that's going to work. I think each township, each school district is really going to have to just look at what they have, the resources that are available to them. And I think that something that really benefited, it is such a contrast from where I was at the last charter school system to where I am in the current charter school system, is that we relied very, very heavily on SEPTA for public transit, which is the public transportation in southeastern Pennsylvania. And that there was a lot of talk about on the news recently that SEPTA might go on strike. Fortunately, there was a contract negotiation with their union that pushed it off for at least a year, but that would cripple the school district of Philadelphia. Whereas my school district, that is a charter school, it is a regional charter school. We rely heavily on the school busings from, I think, 5 to 6 different school districts. So fortunately, there wouldn't be a problem if there was a SEPTA transit issue out where my schools are. So it's just, there's so many different things that come into play when we're talking about school funding, that it's just like a really difficult thing to talk about. I'm sort of like, this is probably, like Jeff said, I really appreciate that Jeff said, like, I just don't know the answer to that, but I do know that there is a lot that goes into this. And something that really does help me is that as a property owner in my township, is that I want to invest in our schools. So as a property owner, some people are very concerned about investing more. So there perhaps is an opportunity for subsidies for those folks or lower income folks. But I see it as a strong public school system as an investment in our children and in our society at large that would benefit all of us. So there's my big non-answer for that one.
Look, I think one of the things that's missing in today's politics on both sides of the aisle, to be honest, and I happen to believe the United States might actually benefit greatly from a parliamentary system. I think we only have one functioning party right now, and democracy demands at least 2. And if we had 4 or 6, I don't think we'd be all the worse for it, to be honest. That said, one thing that is missing very much in our politics is the ability to look somebody in the face and say, you know what, I don't know, but I'll research it. But I'll look, you've given me something to think about. And that's the power of conversation. And it's one of the powers of incumbency, is that the folks who are there probably do know, and they might know a hell of a lot more than you do. And it's why incumbents are generally, reelected at a 90+% rate at every level of government all across the board. But that said, everybody has to beg out at 8 o'clock. So what I want to do with the 10-ish minutes that we have left with you, if you're kind enough to give me an extra 60, 120 seconds or whatever, I want to open the floor, do the same thing that we do for every new guest to the program. And I believe, well, I know Sarah hasn't. I don't think Jeff or Sariann has been here previously. So you all are brand new guests. I just want to open the floor, same order that we did at the beginning. If there is anything that we didn't get to mention, any answer you didn't get to fully answer, any topic you didn't get to hit on, how do people follow you, or whatever you're comfortable sharing, because some people you don't want them following you. But just all of that. The floor is yours. Sarah, please go first.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I didn't really open up with this very well, but my website is kurpel.com, KURPEL.com. I have all of my information in the 3 pillars that I'm running on, which is transparency and communication, great programs, and safety and well-being. I'm expected to lose. And the underdogs that ran before me in the last race, they were very careful. It was during the height of the pandemic, whereas because I have been told to my face by my party that I will lose, then I'm going to run with integrity. I'm going to call out actions, and I'm going to speak up. It's very important to me to highlight that although I have an opponent who is a good person and well qualified, I want to bring to the table expertise in policy revision, implementation, and communication. It is so important to me that we're consistently taking care of our teachers. As an athletic director, I believe that when I take care of my part-time staff, many of whom are teachers, they are going to take care of our kids. It doesn't, as long as we can afford it within our budget, we take care of those people, and they are then able to triage what our kids need. If we focus on building relationships, I learned too late in my teaching and coaching career that we don't teach a subject, we actually teach people. And when we come at our jobs through that approach, and it also goes for being a candidate, I am trying to connect with people. I'm trying to humanize this conversation, because right now it's just been all about these divisive wedge topics, and it doesn't need to be. We need to listen to people. We need to hear that even if I vehemently disagree with the things that they're saying, typically it's coming from a place of really strong emotions and fear, and people are scared. And I care about that. And I care about helping to educate them and get them to understand that I want to help them, that even if they don't like me, I'm still going to help them. And also, please don't threaten me and my family. It's just like, I'm sick of it, you know? I want to help our schools continue to be a great place, because there's really wonderful things happening there despite these wedge issues that just keep coming up. So I'm Sarah Kurpel. I am asking my community for their vote. And when I make mistakes, I ask that they help me to clarify my position on it so that I can try to support them and be a voice of reason, and also to answer them when they ask me to.
Sarah, thank you. Sariann, floor is yours.
So I think education is one of the greatest gifts that we can give to children in our country. And I really want to maintain the great educational system that we have in Nazareth. And that includes allowing students to read books that teach them about other people's lives, other people that have different experiences than them. So I'm pro book. I do not want to see any book taken off the shelf. I'm also, like Sarah said, I also want to listen to everybody. Everybody has a reason that they are fighting for their kids or fighting for their community. And you need to just take the time to listen to those people. Maybe it's a totally wacko idea that you're not going to agree with. However, they have that right to speak, and they have that right to let you know, especially as a school board member, how they feel. What we do with that thought or belief is something that we need to discuss. One of my other biggest things, even though it doesn't pertain to us, is the funding that taxpayers pay in our area. 73% of Nazareth school funding comes from taxpayers, and we have that huge surplus, as Jeff had mentioned. And even though I can't control that, I can still talk to local representatives and representatives across Pennsylvania. We need to do better for our students. We need to make sure that kids in Nazareth have what they need, but also kids in poorer districts like Shamokin and some other places, that they have the computers that they need, that they have everything that they need. The next doctor that cures cancer could be from a poor area, but without all the needed things that child needs to succeed, we're never going to know. So those are two things that I am very adamant about, is providing a great education to the Nazareth students and making sure that there's adequate funding for all schools. Okay, that's me.
Jeff Greener, floor is yours, sir.
Very much, guys. So I wanted to throw out a couple different things real quick. So both Sarah and I were both endorsed by the Nazareth Area Educators Association, a group of teachers. So we met with them recently, and they, after talking to us, they decided they wanted to endorse both of us. So we were very thankful for that. You can also get a hold of us by 2023 NazarethSchoolBoard.com is our website. And I have Facebook. Jeff Greener for School Board is my dedicated school board account, but you can look me up anywhere. I'm not hard to find. I know Sariann also has her own Facebook page as well. So I am 100% behind the teachers, behind the students. And as I keep trying to remind everyone, this is why in the beginning I was making such a point that, yeah, maybe it's been politicized, but it is an apolitical position. And while, yes, I am officially registered as Democrat, I'm certainly not an extremist Democrat. I want to listen to everyone. I want to listen to Republican, Democrat, regardless. And when we've done canvassing, I have reached out and talked to Republicans. And, one of them, you asked about a situation that was a good story for you. So I was sending out the flyers on who to vote for and whatnot. And there was a gentleman that was watching me across the street, and I saw him. So, I went over to talk to him, and I said I was running for school board. And his first question was I a Republican or a Democrat? And so I knew where this was going, and I chuckled and I said, well, I am a Democrat. He says, well, you know what you can tell about Democrat? You know how you can tell when they're lying? They're talking. I'm like, well, tell you what, would you want to listen to me for a minute? And he said, sure. So we got talking. After about 15, 20 minutes, he realized that what I was saying wasn't everything that he thought thought it was going to be. And in the end, I might have actually got him a vote out of him. So, I mean, I appreciate it. And I appreciate the fact that at the end of the day, the things that really matter, we care about what's going on in our community. I don't want money. I don't want decisions. I don't want policies coming from the Midwest. I certainly don't want them coming from Florida, which is where we know a lot of this is coming from. I want to care about what our Nazareth people, what our Nazareth parents, and what our Nazareth students and what our Nazareth teachers need, want, and deserve, and we'll make the Nazareth School District the best thing it can. And with that, and with the fact that, in my opinion, there's nothing, one of the most important things to me in all facets of my life is transparency. So that's something I want to really bring to the school board. I know, as watching as a parent, when the school board votes, we get a bunch of yays and nays, and I have no idea why they voted the way they did on things. Now, some of the mundane, sure, it doesn't really matter, but when after there's a heated parental discussion, and I'll go back to COVID and the masks, and they just said their yays and nays, I'm going, what the heck were you thinking? And you know what? I'm sure others were too. And I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. I think you elected these officials in place. You have the right to deserve. You deserve, and you have the right to know why they voted the way they do. So while a few people have chuckled that it's never going to happen, I'm going to make the starting statement that anytime I vote on anything that's other than the most basic mundane things, I think everyone deserves a little statement at the end of it that they can reference, whether they're in the school board meeting or not, of going, I voted yes or I voted no, and this is why. Just a sentence or two. I think we deserve it to the people that voted us in, and I'm going to push for that from every other school board member that's on the council or the board as a whole. And I think it won't take long if I'm doing it before everyone else feels kind of nothing else, peer pressure, guilted into it. Because again, we're obligated to our constituents. That's why I believe in transparency, and that's why I think whether they're a Republican or a Democrat, I could very well be for them. That's about it.
I'm with you, partner.
One of these days, I'm going to have to ask Mr. Greener what an extremist Democrat is. That's going to be an interesting discussion.
I mean, that's okay. I mean, there's extremists on all sides. I'll give you a quick example. The colleague of mine that is, I would probably classify as an extremist Democrat, who wants to abolish all police stations and bring anarchy back to the world because he's given up on the establishment. So I would say that was a
I would make the case. I'd make the case that even if he's wearing a D at the end of the name, that he isn't one. Maybe that's the other. Maybe that's the half glass, half full, half empty way to look at it.
It could be. At the end of the day, in all things where there's two sides of it, there's gray area in the middle and there's extremes on the ends. How you classify the extremist, the more centralist you are, the more you're going to look at someone on the far ends and go, they're an extremist. It is, of course, an extremist term in and of itself.
Well, let me say to the three of you the same. I will be very repetitive to folks who are used to our program or regulars to our program, and that is, I am beyond grateful for the time that you have shared with us tonight. I know Sunday nights are still somewhat traditionally in this country a family time. I know there are kids that need to get ready for school. Sariann needs to get ready for school. Everybody's got work to do to get ready for Mondays. We don't just work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday anymore. We tend to all work at home a little bit in between in those what are supposed to be off hours. The fact that you gave us so much time tonight is an absolute gift. I am extremely grateful to you. I would love to tell you that there's a huge appearance fee coming your way. There isn't. Anybody that comes to visit us does it out of the kindness of their hearts, and I'm very, very grateful to you for doing that. You are the bad news is that you are members of our family now, and that you are always, always welcome here. And that as much as we are rooting for you and that we hope that you will win, lose, or draw, you are always welcome to come back here and let my audience know about something that you think is important and that needs to be shared with them. The door is open to you. You only need to message me, tell me about it, and you are welcome to come back here anytime. And I very, very, very much hope that this is not the only time that we see you. And you steal this quote and use it if you wish, because I do think it applies to all three of you. And I say that with sincerity. President Kennedy told us that politics can and should be a noble profession. And I believe that that is the spirit with which the three of you are running. And I can't say that for everybody who's visited the program, to be honest. And I can't say that for everybody who runs for office on every side of the aisle. But politics can and should be a noble profession. And it is that nobility, I think, that we have to bring back to the process in general. I find it ironic that the three of you have mentioned so many different times about protecting the voice and opinions and listening to the voice and opinions of the people who would exactly shut down what you're running for. Isn't it ironic that you're the ones that want to protect the fringes? Isn't there an irony there? But again, can and should be a noble profession. Thank you all very, very much for being here. Go get something to eat. Go take care of the kids. And please, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I'm very grateful to you for being here, especially for as long as you were. It means a lot to me. And I know it means a lot to the audience. Thank you, thank you, and thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much,
much for having
Jeff.
us, Jeff.
Have a
Best
great
wishes, Sarah.
evening. Good luck and stay safe out there.
Thanks,
As
everybody.
well. And happy Halloween, to anyone who's
you.
listening.
Good night.
I'm dressing up as a radio host. It's not going well. It's a terrible costume. There's our
It could be scary.
It is scary. There's our guests, Sarah, Jeff, and Sariann, all running for school board throughout in the Delaware County area of Pennsylvania and here in Northampton County in the Nazareth area of Pennsylvania. A couple things we didn't get to touch on that I can talk on after the top of the hour here, and we'll open up the phone line as well. I'll put the phone line's up on the screen in George's square in his graphic. You can always call us. Maybe we'll even let Franz talk. He's always so careful about staying muted, but maybe we'll talk to Franz as well. It is 8:03, third and final hour of the Kennedy Effect. And I got to tell you, from a very personal point of view, and I don't know that anybody who listens to our program live or throughout the week gives a crap about what I'm about to say, but changing the start time of the program has completely changed my Sundays. It is so much less stressful than it was. Just that one little hour. It's amazing the difference that it has brought on. We are entered our third and final hour. It is 8:04 Eastern time. Wherever you are on Facebook, that other side of information is our home group Facebook page. My personal timeline, Jeff Kennedy's, where I will see your comments. If you missed any of the program so far, go to our YouTube channel, that other side of information. We are live there right now, but after we are done, the recording stays right there. George doesn't have to do anything. It stays right there, and you can watch us in small bits throughout the week if that's the way you choose to take in the program. I know not everybody can stay right from 6 all the way straight through to 9, but if you want to take in the program, YouTube's the best place to take it in smaller bits. Watch 10 minutes here, 15 there, half hour there. Through the week, you'll get right through it. It is our plan to be back with you next week, which is November that's not where you're supposed to look for that. The 5th. That only took me, that was awkward, wasn't it? Our plan is to be back with you live next week, November 5th, with our final local candidate forums. Anybody who is welcome. We are actually expecting a Republican candidate next week. Any local candidate from anywhere in the country, any county or local candidate from anywhere in the country, you are welcome here. Our last shot is next week, November 5th. I should have left the calendar up. I am not sure that we're going to be with you yet on the 12th. I think the boss and I have some travel that we're going to be doing that week. So we're not sure about the 12th yet, but we will be back here on the 5th with our final local candidate open house, if you will, before the end of the election cycle. And remember, November 7th is not just election day. It's the end of the election cycle. If you have a mail-in ballot anywhere in this country, if you are voting by mail, get that damn thing in the mail tomorrow. And if you can't get it in tomorrow, Monday, the 30th, then don't mail it. Find a drop box. Any place that is doing mail-in balloting has a drop box, if not several scattered throughout the county. We have four or five of them here in Northampton, and they're spread out pretty well. If your county's a big, large rural county somewhere in the middle of Idaho and they don't have drop boxes, well, then maybe you just have to drive to your county courthouse. I'm not sure that I have an answer for you, but I would not trust the mail to get it where it needs to be. Most places with mail-in balloting, they need the ballot in hand. by the close of polls on election day, the 7th. Give the post about 7 to 8 days. If you can't get it in the mail by then, take it to a drop box, but please vote. Whether you agree with me, love me, hate me, don't agree with, disagree with every damn thing I say, I still want you to vote. Your vote is your voice, and it needs to be heard. It is the minimum that we can do as members of this society, is be heard and be part of the process. Nothing changes by not voting. Nothing changes by not voting. If you are one of those folks that say, oh, they're all crooked and I can't stand them and nothing changes when I vote, that's bullshit. Nothing changes when you sit it out. Vote, 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 vote. That other side of information on Facebook and YouTube, hot101.net, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn Radio app. Tell Alexa to play hot101.net, the TCP Media Group, and www.paygive.org. You have to buy things. When you do, you pay for them. Why not give while you do it? A couple things that I wanted to mention that I didn't get to ask our guests about, and that I think are actually part of the school debate. And I think they've been lost a bit in the school debate. I think they've been forgotten about. They are lost issues or lost. One of the things that I can remember pushing really, really hard when I was a school board member way back in the dark ages, and it was 30 years ago. I think it was 22 when I got elected, so really it was about 32 years ago. It was a long time ago. But even back then, one of the things that I really pushed was consolidation. And I know that can be quite controversial to some folks. They really count on that local control and that local flavor, that local keeping the schools and the school boards as local and close to home as possible. We have more school districts in Pennsylvania than we do municipalities. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. There are more school districts in New Jersey than there are municipalities. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. It is a very big Commonwealth, Pennsylvania. It is a very diverse Commonwealth. We have 3 large urban areas and some of the most rural areas you'll ever find, as rural and spread apart as anywhere in this country. New Jersey is exceptionally diverse. There are large swaths of rural farmland, and the single most densely populated municipality in the country, Union City, New Jersey, is diverse as it comes. But the fact that they have more school districts than municipalities, there's something just fundamentally backward about that. Consolidation of school districts is a good thing. It saves money, and it can equalize the educational process when the curriculum is spread out over a larger group of students, that everyone is receiving the same education. It is, there's that. Speaking of curriculum is one of the things I worked on way back in the dark ages when I was on the school board. One of the things that I really fought for a lot, I'm cheating to see if I put the right phone number up, is additions to the curriculum of life, what I call life skills, life education. And I realize that we have a very different society now. I mean, I had a checkbook back then. Well, I actually still have a checkbook somewhere. I've lost it. I honestly don't even know where it is anymore. And that ain't a great thing, by the way. But I did lose it, and I honestly don't know where it is. But that said, I pushed for things like resume writing, interviewing skills, balancing a checkbook, mortgage, car loans, things like that, home budgeting. We did some of it when I was in school, but not a lot. And not every student goes on to higher education. They need as many life skills as humanly possible. Something that I think schools don't do enough of. Not every child is going to come out
of the school system and be an engineer or a computer programmer. They're just not. There's a severe lack of trades people in this country. A severe lack. These are good, decent, honest, honorable professions. And they are now very highly paid and highly skilled because there are so few of them. So we should be teaching life skills in school, balancing a checkbook, keeping a bank account, not putting yourself in debt, learning about credit cards, learning about mortgages, etc., investing for retirement in the hopes that someday I never expect to retire. I expect to die while I work. I don't think there's ever going to be a retirement for me. I don't have, by the time Reagan transitioned us all into 401ks, I've been working long enough and I haven't stayed anywhere long enough to develop any kind of sizable 401k. And the average American worker changes jobs 7 times in their career. So I'm the average American worker. I haven't stayed anywhere long enough to build a high enough 401k. What I do have out there isn't going to be enough to sustain me. We should be teaching students how to prepare, hopefully, for that day. Life skills, I think, are exceptionally important. We don't do this. And I don't want to gloss over the irony that I did mention a couple times in my 2 hours with our guests. The sheer irony and hypocrisy of Republican candidates wanting to control every level of government, a government that they do not even believe should exist. You have Republican right-wing extreme, and I'll disagree with Jeff Greener. I don't know what an extremist Democrat is. Nobody's ever been able to tell me what that is with any consistency or with any, anything behind it, to be honest. And it's just a point of disagreement. I don't think he hates me. I don't hate him. We just happen to disagree. And that's a healthy thing for a democracy. But that said, Republicans are running for these offices. They want to control them. They want control of your money. They want control of public money. And they want control over institutions that they don't even think should exist. So why are they running to control them? And why are they willing to lie, cheat, steal, threaten, marginalize in order to get it? It's just something we must ask ourselves. We can come up with different answers. Again, differentiation of opinion is healthy for a democracy. We can come up with different answers. We can come up with different opinions. But we need to ask the questions. The Republican Party has taken upon itself to fight the existence of public education. But yet, they have candidates, well-funded ones, some funded by the Koch network themselves, running in the smallest of districts all across this country to control them and control the money that comes into them. Half of all seniors are now on private insurance plans that call themselves Medicare, even though they have nothing to do with Medicare. Republicans hate Medicare. They want to end Medicare, but they really want to control it because they want those public tax dollars going to private for-profit corporations. Schools are the same thing. They don't want public schools to exist, but they want all the money so they can give it out to private for-profit entities. Please ask yourself, why do people running under the Republican banner want so damn desperately to control what they don't even want to exist? 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. The phone line is open. Randall mentions in the chat that Delaware County-wide intermediate unit has a VOTEC school since the late 60s. There was a VOTEC school in Warren County from the, I think, 40s, if I'm not mistaken. And look, skilled individuals came out of it.
And there's nothing wrong with a technical education. Again, I would say the same thing, that there's a severe lack of tradespeople in this country. Carpenters, plumbers, electricians, masons, drywall folks, framers, landscape artists. There's a severe lack of tradespeople in this country. There's no shame in any student, any individual who doesn't wish to go to college but wishes to go learn a trade. There's nothing wrong with it. We have tried to steer every single student, and I'm a victim of it myself, into college. Oh, you have to go to college. And while it is true that folks that come out with a college degree do generally make more money, they don't in every facet of the economy. Carpenters make really good money. Plumbers make real good money. Electricians make real good money. And these are honorable, decent paths of employment that can provide very, very sustainable, healthy lives for the folks that do them and the families that they rear. Randall, go ahead, my friend.
Hey, wonderful show, and I'm glad that I connected you with Sarah.
I thank you very much for that. She's a tough cookie.
She is a wonderful cookie.
She'd be a hell of an asset to that district. I hope people have the intellectual intelligence to look past which line she's on the ballot and just go for the quality human being. She would be she'd be again, Ashley Shea mentioned earlier in the chat, hey, Sarah, come move up to Union County. Yeah, I can't think of a district that wouldn't benefit from someone like that. Thank you for connecting us. I appreciate it. I ask the audience on a regular basis to send me guest suggestions, and I'm glad that you did. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Getting back to VOTEC, you saw my comment that Delco, Delaware County, Pitt, Pennsylvania, which is southwestern county directly connected to Philadelphia County, Philadelphia School District. They established, our intermediate unit established VOTEC schools in the late 60s. I had a lot of friends from Pendelco, Sun Valley High School that went to VOTEC, and they went on. And some of them, the lucky, went to the most prestigious trade school in the country, which is located here in Delco. And that is formerly the Williamson School of Trades, but now is the Williamson College of Trades. And they have carpentry, they have horticulture, they have HVAC, electricians, plumbers. Every one of those people that graduated from there that I know of. Seriously, I know a heck of a lot. They all started immediately hired by companies because they graduated from Williamson Trade School. Well, excuse me, Williamson College of Trade. They usually after 10 years, they start their own company.
Mm-hmm.
Electrician or HVAC.
Yep. Not to mention HVAC too. Yeah.
HVACU, by the way, is the highest paid trade there is. Electricians is second highest paid.
And there's a massive, there's a real substantial increase in the value of a qualified, experienced HVAC, as we saw through the pandemic, where HVAC systems were part of filtration systems that were keeping people safe, keeping them healthy, and saving people's lives. There's been this whole new valuation that's been put on top of a skill like that. So that's a, I should have remembered them, or them, that, whatever right word there is, but as a part of the tradespeople that I was mentioning before, you're very, very astute to mention that.
No, it's funny, Jeff. At the beginning of the pandemic, I spent a lot of money to add onto my HVAU system a final process going to the higher filters, etc. I added on a UV light to purify the air as it's being recirculated.
Right.
So I absolutely agree with you on how important HVAU system mechanics became during the pandemic. The reason HVACU is the highest paid technical, though, is because with all the HVAU systems going from somewhere in the early 90s, from hydraulic controls to computer control, a technician just doesn't have to know mechanics. A technician has to also know how to program the system. So you talked about grades don't have to go to be a computer programmer in high school. In college. Well, any trades, number one, you've got to be proficient in math. Whether it's calculating airflow on HVAC systems, whether it's measuring lumber to go in, or measuring piping to go in.
I was more talking about the way that we as a society seem to kind of post-Reagan, Clinton era, everyone was going to go to college to be a computer programmer. That's pretty much what everybody was going to do. They were going to all go be computer programmers until we saturated the market with computer programmers.
And then we had to
go for, we're not going to have to make tradespeople anymore, because computers and robots are all going to do it for us. Except that hasn't come, and now we have a complete dearth of tradespeople, and computer programming is saturated. It's yes, you're 100% right. You need computer skills in these trades. I was talking more about, and I'm sure you remember what I'm talking about, that it seemed to me that in the mid and late 90s, everybody was going to go be a computer programmer.
And that's because up until 1999 and that bust with the internet, that's because 99% of the computer programmer jobs were Americans in this country. And that was one of the last industries to be taken overseas, to be given for cheaper wages in China, Malaysia, Indonesia, except India, etc. India is the big one now. That's why we became oversaturated, because all these American companies shipped all those jobs for cheaper labor overseas, just like all manufacturing jobs earlier were shipped overseas for cheaper labor, and list is endless.
Yep. How are you feeling, by the way?
I'm feeling good.
Healthy?
I've got some new problems. I've got to get checked out by specialists, but I'm feeling good.
Well, that's good.
I'm living here in Pendelco School District that Sarah's running for, and I graduated from that system from Sun Valley High School in 1970. Yeah, I'm old. You think you're old? You really know what old is.
Well, I know I'm old.
But
I know I'm old.
I worry about my grandchildren in this school system, because when I went through Pendelco in the 60s, because my family didn't move back here to Pennsylvania to Aston Township in Pendelco until February of 63, when my was transferred from Boeing Wichita to the newly acquired Bertall helicopter plant, which makes the Chinook, half makes the V-22s, upgrades the Chinook, upgrades the V-22s. My mother, her bachelor's of science was in education, and she was big on it, public education. And she looked around the school district here in Western Delaware County, and Pendelco at that time had the highest academic rate. Now, Sarah mentioned Garnet Valley, within 5 miles of us, Rose Tree Media, within 5 miles of us. They are shining examples because of the socioeconomic class of taxpayers and the educational class of taxpayers. Pendelco has always been a blue-collar, middle-class school district. And, yeah, my father's blue-collar. He worked for Boeing. But he had his college degree, too. BS in animal husbandry from University of Missouri. In any case, the quality of education over the decades and decades and decades and has just fallen. And here in Pendelco, I ran for Pendelco School Board in my 20s, in 1977. I ran at that time. The Republicans controlled our school board 100%, and we're going to save taxpayer money. We're going to cut all gifted programs, which they did. And that was my main reason for running, to support gifted programs, to support education programs.
And what happens when you attack education? You take away the ability for middle and lower class folks to move up, because education is a great equalizer, and you guarantee yourself the next generation of drone workers of $8, $7, well, $7.25, $8, $9, $10, $12 workers. You guarantee that. You build that in because you take away the great equalizer, the great societal equalizer, education.
Absolutely. And that's what all began under Reaganomics. That's what all began under the 1% class that wants to squeeze every last tax dollar for the common good out of the people to pocket their.
They don't want to pay in, but they want yours.
Exactly.
That tax money that we all pay into to pay for the federal government, states, counties, locals, the richest among us, I won't even just say Republicans. Nobody wants to pay more taxes than they should have to. No one does. The most progressive Democrat doesn't want to overpay. That said, the rich, I can't even just say Republicans, the rich doesn't want to pay a dime because they think that their money is their money. But they also think that your money is their money. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine. They're not just generating their own wealth anymore. They're extracting that wealth from the rest of us. They have made it plain that they want to destroy and end public education in this country. Until they get to that point, they want to control it and take all that money and stuff it in their pockets.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to move on, my friend. It's 8:30. We got a half hour left. And George,
I hope somebody else calls in.
I do too. The phone line's going to be open.
And I'll see you next week.
You got it, my friend. You better stay healthy.
Thank you.
And you better work. And you better work on a ride to Harrisburg.
Yeah.
I'm putting it on you. You got a month and a half.
I know.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. George very rightfully reminds me that I said I was going to talk about this article last week and that I didn't do it. So I will do it now so that I don't forget. There's a lot of other things I could get into, including the new Speaker of the House. I would just say this about the new Speaker of the House. One of his, Mr. Johnson, the best descriptions I have heard about him this week, and one that seems to encapsulate everything about him, is that he's Jim Jordan with a suit jacket and tie. We all know who Jim Jordan is. We all know that he was one of the architects of the January 6th insurrection. Mr. Johnson helped write the Supreme Court amicus brief, what they call an amicus brief. It's a friend of the court brief. It's a brief that when two parties are in court, people who agree with one of those parties can contribute writings. He helped write the amicus brief to overturn the presidential election. And I love the way, that some in the media will say, well, he wanted to take away the vote of everyone in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin. No, he was disenfranchised the 84 million people who voted for President Biden. Not just in the overwhelmingly blue states where Biden won comfortably, like New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, California. He would have disenfranchised everybody. Yes, the brief was to overturn Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. I'm not going to remember all the states. Arizona. There was something else. Georgia. I think I have them all. The result would have been to have disenfranchised everyone that voted, even the ones that voted for Trump. He wrote the Supreme Court amicus brief to overturn the election. He's Jim Jordan. He just happens to look a little, the exterior is just a little more pleasing. The inside is as rotten to the core, as blatantly, outwardly authoritarian and fascist as Jim Jordan. We can't be afraid to use these words. We can't be afraid to use them because they're accurate. They're truthful, they're factual, they're accurate, and they are based in history. He's every bit of a corporate shill owned by the billionaire class fascist that Jim Jordan is. He just has a tie, a better haircut, and wears a jacket. That's all I can say about it. I could go on for hours about it, but there really isn't much more to add. He's Jim Jordan with a suit jacket and a tie. So there was an article that I mentioned at the end of the program last week. And by the way, the phone line is open, 267-227-9189. 267-227-9189. We can if you call in, we'll talk about anything you want to talk about. Ashley mentions that Mr. Johnson's personal and political beliefs are made to keep domestic violence victims pregnant. No doubt about it. I love how middle-aged white men just think it's their domain to decide that women should have children. It's and Ashley also mentions that the economy cannot function under these Republicans. It can't and it hasn't. As much as President Biden has accomplished economically in this country, as much as he has accomplished, he really has not ended the basic tenets of Reaganism. When Reagan was sworn in, the top marginal tax rate was still 74%. In today's dollars, that means that every dollar that you earned over 4 million, not all 4 million, but every dollar beyond the $4 million mark, you paid 74% of it in taxes. It was an equalizer. Who the hell needs $1 billion when you continue to make multiple billions? 3 people in this country have as much wealth as the bottom 60%. 8 people on the planet have as much wealth as the bottom 4 billion people. It's immoral. It's wrong and it's immoral. One of the great hypocrisies of the evangelical movement is there's nothing Christian about it. As much as President Biden has accomplished, and he has accomplished an immense amount, it's been the most consequential presidency since Johnson. He still has not broken the basic tenets of Reaganism. The top marginal rate is still only around 37%. It should be at least 50. If I had my way, it'd be 91, like it was during the New Deal. The Infrastructure Act is a very New Deal style of legislation. But we can go further. The Green New Deal will be an economic boom for this country and the planet as a whole. The CHIPS Act is a remarkable piece of legislation, but it still subsidizes all of this. Come on, bring your manufacturing back. We'll pay for all of it. What the hell are we paying for all of this for? Mandate it. You want to sell chips to the U.S. military? They better be made in the United States, or we won't buy them anymore. And considering that the military budget is over $1 trillion a year, you'll see them move back. Force their hand. Play their hand. But as consequential and substantial as this administration has been, it has not broken the basic tenets of Reaganism. The number of people on private insurance plans that are being called Medicare, half of the Medicare program is now privatized. Some reports will say it's up as much as 60%. The generally accepted number is it's about half and half now. Why hasn't this been stopped? Half the military budget is now simply doesn't support our troops at all, not a dime of it. It just goes right to contractors. Free money. Why is that still that way? Why are we paying private companies to cook meals, wash uniforms, and build encampments? Soldiers used to do that and can still. There are soldiers who will tell you, we could do all this. Some of them have been on this program. Christopher Kowardovich has told you multiple times, we could put up our own tent. We can wash our own uniforms. We can cook for ourselves. We used to. We still give away $500 billion a year to the fossil fuel industry. Free money. Simply by the subsidies alone that we give away. Gas should be about $1 a gallon. Maybe $1.50. But we give this money away. We haven't broken the basic tenets of Reaganism. And believe me, I will support this president. I will vote for him. I will do it enthusiastically. I don't even think it's a discussion. He will be the nominee. He should be the nominee. He should be reelected. He has governed exactly how he said he would for the entirety of the country. The early economic data on his legislation shows that red states are benefiting disproportionately to the blue states. He said he would govern for the entire nation. That's exactly what he's done.
Has he done enough for me? No. Has he done more than I thought he would get done? Oh, yes, and by a long way. Does he deserve to be reelected? Yes. Yes, he does. And I will make that case on this program right up until Election Day of 2024. So there is an article that I wanted to get to. And again, the phone line is open, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. You might be hearing some barking. Daisy the dog is not happy. She wants to go outside and play, but it's dark and I think it's raining. So she's getting a little nuts down there. I will have to take her out almost immediately after I'm done. And remember, a mere 18 minutes from now, The Villain's View comes your way live. I probably should have made sure with him before I keep saying that. But I should maybe we'll text him quickly just to make sure. It would be better if I spelled it correctly. I keep saying that I should make sure that he's on. Let me get to this. So I talked about this last week, and George is 100% right, as he usually is, for reminding me. I'm going to show this to you. This is not actually a week old now. Hopefully you can see this quite well. It's that one. It's that one that we want to look at. No, I'm kind of taking it out. It's this. Let me see if I can do this. That's the article that we really want to focus on. There we go. I think I got it right. So I want to read this to you. Oh, he says yes, he is. Okay, I was making sure. Making sure. Been saying it all night. Anyway, I'm even going to unmute Franz for this because I know he's going to say something, which I think is going to be funny. That said, or I can just can I unmute it? No, I have to ask him to. Again, so this is a week old. Okay, so this came and look at this. Look at the fun this is, folks. Look at this. It's an actual physical newspaper. How cool is that? How old-fashioned is that? But that said, I actually used an old-fashioned newspaper. So this is a week old, but the article, I think this article is the embodiment of everything that capitalism has become in this country. And dare I say globally. Ashley mentions President Biden, has done great things. Has he met all my hopes? Not at all. Disappointed me a handful of times. But we hold because he's still a strong leader and the stakes are way too high. And you are correct. They are way too high. It is the existence of democracy itself. So let me read just a bit of this to you. And I hope that it bothers you. I literally hope this bothers you every bit that it bothers me. And of course, I hope that you agree with me. But I happen to believe that this article is the embodiment of everything that's wrong with capitalism and all of the complete bastardization and mutant changes that have happened to capitalism since its founding. Headline: Power plant seeks okay to burn tires. Now, this is written by Mr. Leif Grice, and I hope I'm saying that correctly. And if I'm not, I hope Mr. Grice calls and yells at me. And he's a staff writer for the Morning Call, the Allentown Morning Call, right here in the Lehigh Valley.
A Carbon County power plant's plans to burn old tires to fuel Bitcoin mining operations is leaving activists and some county residents worried about cancer and climate change causing pollutants. Panther Creek, a 33-acre plant in Nesquehoning, has been owned by Stronghold Digital Mining, a Bitcoin mining company, since 2021. Panther Creek is only permitted to use coal refuse, which I would submit is bad enough, also known as anthracite culm. I think I'm saying that correctly, CULM, which is coal scrap that was discarded due to its poor quality and is often mixed with rock, shale, slurry, slate, clay, and other materials. The process of mining Bitcoin is highly energy intensive, requiring a large number of specialized computers or quote unquote mining machines that need to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Energy generated at the Panther Creek plant is retained by Stronghold for its crypto mining operations. None of it goes into the power grid. Stronghold also receives coal refuse energy and reclamation tax credits and Pennsylvania Tier 2 alternative credits from the state. The state of Pennsylvania is paying this company to pollute and cause cancer for the people surrounding this plant so it can mine, quote unquote, mine a currency that doesn't exist. Think about that. It doesn't exist. Bitcoin is a fictional currency. I want someone to hold one and show it to me. You can't. It's a digital currency. It's a thought. It's a concept. They don't exist. I could start a digital currency tomorrow. Kennedy effect coins. Arbitrarily set a value for them. And there are fools around this planet who will start trading in them, while I demand only real dollars in return. These are fake currencies. The trial of Sam Friedman in Europe should teach you everything that you need to know. These are fake, arbitrary, conceptual currencies. They are completely unregulated. They call no nation home. They are not regulated by any central bank. The amount of them that either exist or doesn't exist is determined entirely by the creator and never seems to be entirely accurate. George mentions it is completely unregulated and unmonitored by banks. It makes it a great way for terrorist organizations and despot state nations to trade in black market for arms, to sell drugs. And now this private, quote unquote, mining corporation wants to now burn tires in a power plant that it owns, that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is subsidizing so it can sicken and kill even more people that live around the plant so they can get a hold of this fake digital currency.
What the frack has happened to this country? It's twisted. It's sick. It's sick. You know, I've often talked on this program about the bankers, the banksters, the Wall Street banksters who put numbers on a spreadsheet, move it around, click it, cut, paste, slash, change colors, type, click, and make money off of it. They generate money from nothing. And we all seem to think that that's wrong and that it should be illegal and more regulated. Well, what the hell is this crap? These goddamn things don't even exist. We let a group of investment bankers buy a power plant, burn nothing but garbage and shit in it that's killing everybody around them. The state of Pennsylvania is subsidizing it. And now they want to burn even dirtier shit, so they can collect a currency that doesn't even exist. What the hell are we doing? What has happened to this country? If Stronghold made fill in the blank, TVs, jeans, cars, computers, cameras, microphones, headsets, glasses, clothing, art, at least they would be generating their own power for the sake of something. They're doing this for nothing. And we're contributing to it. You gotta be kidding me. If this doesn't show everything that's wrong with capitalism, I don't know what does. And we have to ask ourselves as Americans, as citizens, as residents, are we no better than this? Is this all that we deserve? A handful of bankers running computers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that requires its own power plant to somehow discover this magical, mythical, unicornish currency that they can get rich off of, while the people who live around there and downwind of it get cancer and die. It's effing medieval. It's the landed gentry and the serfs. It's medieval. This is why people should get involved in politics. This is why people should run for office, to stop shit like this. We're better than this. We're better than this, damn it. We're better than this. Why should the people that live around this plant have to die a slow death so a small handful of investment bankers or foreign nationals, or as George very rightfully points out, terrorists, get quote unquote rich off of a currency that doesn't even really exist? Are you shitting me? I read on. Now, to help supplement the coal refuse it uses to power its energy-intensive Bitcoin mining operation, Panther Creek and Stronghold are seeking permission from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection to burn tire-derived fuel as a supplement, meaning it would comprise up to 15% by weight of the fuel it burns per month. Like coal refuse, scrap tires are also cheap.
And some research has shown they produce more energy than coal. The application filed by Osmond Environmental Solutions on behalf of Stronghold and Panther Creek in July states the plant has already tested the abilities of its boilers to combust tire-derived fuel, but under temporary approval from the DEP. During this test period, Panther Creek said it was able to remain within its plant-wide pollution emissions limits. It's sick. We're a sick country when killing is acceptable for profit. It's sick. We're sick. It's sick. And the Commonwealth is subsidizing it. Now, the Commonwealth is already subsidizing it with these tax credits for this power plant to generate power for itself and no one else. So taxpayer money is paying this group of investment bankers to mine Bitcoins. So not only do they get the profit from the Bitcoins, they can run the plant at a reduced cost because you and I are paying for it. What do you really think the Department of Environmental Protection is going to say to them? Because I'm sure part of the application is going to be the information that we already receive subsidies for this. I am so glad that the Morning Call did an article on this. I am stunned. Now, I should say, let me back up before I say that. I don't live in Carbon County. Carbon County is directly north of Lehigh County in Pennsylvania. Maybe in Carbon County, this is a huge story and a huge controversy. I don't know that because I don't live there. But I haven't had a single person talk to me in the last week about, wow, did you see that article in the Morning Call? And it was obviously important enough that the Morning Call put it on the front page of the Sunday edition. It's right there above the fold, right next to an article, by the way, that we should probably get to about how mobile home residents are being driven into poverty by rent. We're better than this. We're better than this as a country, as a society, and as a people. We're better than this. But not if we don't demand it. We have to demand better. We have to, again, remember that we deserve better. That's all the damage we can do for this week. For everyone at TCP, Marquise Whitney, Andrew, Taekwon, for everyone at hot101.net, DJ Lex, DJ Earl, all the DJs, everybody, the entire hot101.net family, for Lynn and George Dare, for April Riddick, for France, and of course for Kristen, Daisy the dog, and Guy the cat downstairs. I'm Jeff Kennedy. That's it for us for this week. We return next week live on November 5th. Vote, 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 vote. The Village View starts right now.